All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. My name is Thinker St. James. This is last week's fights. We're going to be going over UFC Fight Night Royval versus Taira, as well as Dana White's Contender Series Week 9. Almost done with the Contender Series for the year. And to do all of that, as always, I am joined by my co-host, the Ohio Player, a man whose wife has a dump truck that you can bounce a quarter off of, Chase Parton. How you doing, brother?
I'm here. I'm so ready to talk about these fights. You know, each and every week, I swear, like, the time between us talking gets shorter that I'm like, I got to talk about this. I got to get my thoughts out and just make sure that whatever I have on my brain gets out there. Because, man, it was a fun card. I don't want to say it was good, but it was fun, I would say.
Yeah, it was on the lower side of the spectrum, but there were a couple of standout performances. Actually, a couple of decent fights earlier on in the card, and then, of course, we'll talk about the main event, obviously. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, that is what the show is for. If you are new here, we are going to be going over every single fight from this event and Dana White's Contender Series as well. If you got anything that is not pertaining to the fight that we're talking about at the moment, throw it in the chat and we will come back to it after we get through all of these fights. So to start this thing off, let's go all the way to, this is Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Hoka, I believe is how it's pronounced, you know, a Brazilian pronunciation, but Clayton Carpenter versus Louis Hoka. What'd you think of the fight?
I think I made a bad pick at first. You know, first fight of the night. I'm never going to take a dude named Clayton, I don't think. It's probably going to stand. So
name bias.
I think this one was definitely not going to go to him. But so when I see Lucas get split open and I see him on the ground and he's looking hopeless, I question, how are you 17-1, my guy? I was wondering like when some BJJ was going to get introduced for him and maybe he'll pull out a sub. But Clayton's pretty good. I think another thing is, and we're going to talk about bias, you know, name bias, is Lucas. He's the type of dude that you look at and you're like, oh, he doesn't look like a 17-1 fighter. And then he loses and you're like, well, there you fucking go. Like, that's just what you thought.
Yeah, fair enough. You know, perhaps going off of name is not necessarily the wisest way to go about your picks. But overall, I suppose that there was some truth to the assumptions there for you. Yeah, I thought that Carpenter looked really, really good in this fight. He was fighting like he wanted to fucking win, which is really nice to see every once in a while. You know, we've entered a bit of a time when there's a lot of people fighting, and sometimes they're not always looking like they really are going after it at all times in the fight. And I thought that Carpenter did. So I thought that was really nice. He was advancing positions at all times, which I thought was also really good. You see a lot of times now as well where there are guys who go to the ground and then don't really do anything with it, don't really seem to have a plan when they are in the wrestling and the further grappling situations. And he looked like he did. So I was happy with all of that. I thought his takedowns were really nice. He actually saw the openings and capitalized on them, which was great. Those blast doubles, man. I was like, this guy is really making that work, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for flyweight, like when you see really good wrestlers, it's good to see, especially in the lower weight classes, when they can do everything. But like Clayton's like dominant at what he does. It was good to see, especially for the first fight of the night. This was a pretty good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought this was a great start to this card overall. And you know, the other thing I wanted to mention was, of course, the elbow that Carpenter had landed when he was on top that split Hoka's eyebrow, like literally the eyebrow itself. I
Yeah.
was like, ooh, I'm sitting there on the watch long, like, man, that must be pretty painful. Not only the initial impact of it, but then when you have to get that worked on to be in an area with like that type of coarse hair, getting stitched up. That's kind of a nasty one. So not great for Hoka. And I mean, he did land a nice flying knee early in the second round. Hoka did, but Carpenter ate that thing up like cereal, and then that second double leg ended up getting him to the rear naked choke. So put him out to sleep.
Yeah, the cut. All right, this is one where I was like, well, doctor stoppage incoming. But Clayton did not let that even become a fucking option. So good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, overall a good start to the card. I liked this fight, and I liked Carpenter's performance. I think he's potentially a guy to keep an eye on. Although it seems now every time that we come back after these flyweight fights, it's like there's more and more of these smaller guys putting on really, really great performances. So that division is pretty hot right now.
Well, hey, we will talk about that later. But yes, flyweight. I still don't get why people are not on the hype train. Maybe they just never will. The flyweights are fun to watch. They bring it every time. They will fight. Like it could be the first fight of the night or the last fight of the night. These are two flyweights right here, and they both fought for their fucking check. Like that's all you get right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the reasoning, at least in my estimation, is probably because they think the smaller guys don't have knockout power. But we will talk going forward. Actually, I think that the one I'm thinking of is a bantamweight, but still, it's a smaller weight classes. There are knockouts. Don't that's a
You know,
misconception.
and it's crazy that misconception because let me bring it up now just because I have a little heat. Now everybody's a fucking scientist. Oh, we know how much punch power delivers a knockout. The casual fan apparently now the if that has to be if that is the reason, like apparently everybody knows everything. Y'all don't know nothing because I've seen knockouts from the little guys. So don't act like it's just so uncommon. They be scrapping down there. So
Yeah,
whatever.
come on. And right, and even if it doesn't end up in a knockout, you end up with these amazing firefights at times, and the wrestling can be really good and the grappling as well. So it's just like, yeah, enjoy, man. Why, people are looking for things that they think they want, but should be happy with what they're actually getting, I think.
100%.
So, yeah, shout out to Larry in the chat. How you doing, brother? All right. So actually, before we move on, I did want to take one step back and mention that I should have said this before we even got into the fights proper, but three weight misses on this card. There was Dan Argueta, who we'll talk about here in a second, who missed by 2.5 pounds. There was Jared Gooden, who missed by 1.5 pounds. And then Josh Fremd was the worst offender of them all, missing by 3.5 pounds, leading to that fight with Abdul Razak Al Hassan being canceled. So a little bit of a weight curse on this card. I have no idea why you'd have three misses in one card like this when it's in Vegas. It's no really extenuating circumstances as far as the circumstances of the fight itself, or the card itself rather. So it's just very strange to have that many misses on one card. But I guess you could say that it is an Apex card. It's guys who are not necessarily at the top of the sport. Perhaps there are some excuses, but there are no excuses for missing by as much as these guys did. These are some pretty heavy misses.
Yeah, and so what I want to say, because it seemed that you may have not realized, is so the fight that Abdul and Josh Frem were supposed to have, and Josh Frem missed weight, right?
Hmm.
He did get cut. So just
Yep.
shows be professional. And I was gonna bring it up in the other fight where we see another fighter get cut, but we'll bring that up and we'll be all over the place for a
For
second.
sh
But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. But yeah, I mean,
um,
good thing to mention though. You're absolutely right. I mean, these fighters a lot of times, especially I would say that farther down the road into their careers when they're a little bit more established, they definitely feel this way. But I think that it can go for any level of their career where they do think that, oh well, I mean, I'll just miss weight and it'll either happen or the fight won't happen. I mean, I'll forfeit a little bit of my purse and it'll go on or it won't. And it's like, no, you really should. If you're a professional fighter, you really should be professional.
yeah, exactly. And I think that one makes sense. I think the other cut that we will discuss, I think that makes a little less sense, and we'll discuss that here, soon. But
For sure.
next fight.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving on from that, we've got Cody Haddon coming fresh off of the Contender series. We talked about him a couple episodes back only. Cody Haddon versus Dan Argueta, who I didn't remember that Dan Argueta, I guess, is also a Contender series guy, but I believe he was a season before or sometime earlier. That's why I thought that I had heard that anyway. Maybe I'm mistaking it for a different person, but
No, no, no.
is he not?
He came from the LFA.
Oh, okay. LFA guy. Got you. Okay. Then it must have been a different fight where there were two guys who had been on the Contender series at some time. But
Gotcha.
anyway, regardless, Cody
Yeah.
Haddon versus Dan Argueta. As I mentioned, Argueta missing weight by 2.5 pounds. Egregious weight miss. That's the type of miss that Wonder Boy would not accept a fight with, and rightfully so. Cody Haddon going out there and taking the fight and then getting a win with that. Very impressive. And also, having just fought on the Contender series more than a couple of weeks ago, this guy is a little bit of a star in the making, perhaps.
Yeah, I want to say he is 100% a star in the making because, like you said, he just came off fighting I want to say it was week 4, 5, or 6, something like that. Either way, he comes in here against a person who purposely missed weight, which I don't want to. I like Dan Argueta, but the fact that he missed weight, seemingly a little bit on purpose, is kind of sketchy because Cody Haddon, this would have been a loss that you would have hate to see from a person who just misses weight and then they come out here and they win due to whatever situation that brings.
Right.
Cody Haddon was definitely able to throw a firefight the entire fucking fight. He was throwing everything at Dan Argueta all the way until the bell. And I do think his stamina was becoming, obviously he was gassed, but like his stamina was causing an issue that made him vulnerable, I feel, for wrestling. He did a
For
really
sure.
good job defending the wrestling at that point, but if he gets up against somebody, of course, Marab, Umar, like they're gonna get that double leg because he just stands so tall and he's so gassed and like his hands are just at his side, which, and then I'll let you go, does not take away from how good his striking is. He is absolutely a beast on the feet.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we didn't really get to see all of that because he got that rear naked on the Contender series so early. But man, I was very impressed with his striking. It was looking pretty crispy. And to your point, Argueta had some decent pressure early. Got the takedown, clinch to Cody's back for a second there. For a little bit more than a second, it was for a little minute. But Cody did a great job to stay calm and find his way out. And then the combos. I mean, this guy is not throwing ones, man. I mean, twos, threes, and fours coming out of Haddon looking really, really nice. And then once the wrestling was clear, he put his own pressure on, moving forward constantly, not giving Argueta the space that he wanted to work, which I thought was a really effective strategy. That especially after having gone through the wrestling exchanges that he went through, if you know that the guy wants to have the space, the real estate to get his wrestling off, you cut him off and you basically force him to either shoot straight or to strike with you, to an extent. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty smart on his part, on Haddon's part. And then, I mean, the one other thing was that knee that he had landed was pretty goddamn flush. I mean, they showed the other angle where I guess there might have been a little bit of a hand block, but bro, with
Mhm.
the placement of Argueta's head, like I don't care if that hand was there or not, like that landed and that you could hear it. So, really nice placement there. Good IQ on that one.
I want to say that this is probably one of the better performances that I've seen out of Dan Argueta too, Cody Haddon is just that. Okay, sorry. Let me not say that that's one of the better performances, but Dan Argueta himself, he looked really good. He looked in good shape. Obviously, missed weight, but like he shot for 24 takedowns, guys. Like that's fucking
Yeah, no
crazy. Like,
shit. Yeah, hell
um,
yeah.
so he looked pretty good, especially coming off of a sub. Like I'm pretty sure that was early in his last fight. So I was thinking he was gonna get subbed again. Cody Haddon just had a sub. He just got subbed. It makes sense, MMA math, sure, whatever you want to talk about. But
Mm.
I thought it was in the making. So the fact that he got to decision against somebody who was really putting the pressure on the feet, stopping all of his takedown attempts after the first round ish, and it was just impressive on both ends. This was a really good fight. I don't know who got fight of the night or performance of the night or anything. This could have been one of fight of the night. This could have
That
been.
yeah, that's literally also in my notes is that I loved this fight, and if it weren't for the main event, this would have been fight of the night. I don't know if they ended
Yeah.
up giving it to them or not, but yeah, I would assume so after after watching the main event, which of course we'll get to. But yeah, this was a great one. I enjoyed it. The one thing I did think was a little weird because of what we just said there is that 30-27s across the board for Haddon. I was like, you probably could have given Argueta, I would think, the first round. I mean, Haddon did land some good striking in that first round too, and negated a lot of what Argueta was doing. But it's like you said, you brought up the takedown attempts, 24 of them. I think that stat shows it really speaks to Haddon's skill level as well. I mean, he shot for 24 and only got 4 of them on the other side of it. Haddon going for 4 and getting 2. So, I mean, those pretty decent numbers for him, and heavy on Argueta's side, obviously doing a lot of work. So,
Yeah, and that's a stat that you have to actually watch the fight to understand. It's because Dan Argueta got like the first 2, 3 takedowns pretty easily. And
mhm.
then after that, it was like he was maybe 1 for 19 or whatever. It was, I don't know if the math adds up there, but anyway, but
You get
Cody
the point.
Haddon,
Yeah.
yeah, Cody Haddon did a really good job keeping it on the feet, keeping it to where he could, lead the fight. He obviously could have wrestled with him. After a certain point, it's like he was the dominant wrestler at getting positions because he was just getting out of everything. He could have reversed and kept it in some positions, but like he chose to keep it where he knew he could win the fight, and he was tired. I'll tell you that these dudes were both tired.
Both
So
exhausted, yeah. In the third round, it was definitely showing on both of them. But I mean, still going for it on both sides as well. Yeah, this really was a really good fight. I mean, and to have it after the first fight, we mentioned also a nice performance from Carpenter there in the first. This was trending in a really nice direction for a while there. So I was like, man, I mean, this could be one of those cards that really surprises you. And then, maybe not so much in a couple of them coming, thereafter, but. Still, these two very nice in this one, especially Cody Haddon versus Dan Argueta, really nice.
I was really hoping. I know initially before going into the fight, I was hoping Cody Haddon would get a sub. Not hoping. I do, like I said, Dan Argueta, cool guy, nice guy, very cool guy. Anyway, he. I was hoping that at the second round mark, beginning of the third, that Dan Argueta was going to start feeling those punches because man, he was eating so many clean combinations, just like
Yeah,
to the chin, to the forehead, to the to the temple, like every angle Cody Haddon was finding. So I thought that was really fucking slick.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think we've of course mentioned it several times, but Argueta's weight miss definitely plays a part into all of this. So you do have to kind of keep everything in a little bit of perspective. One thing that the weight miss helps as well is your absorption of shots. People don't really credit that as much, but it's true. I mean, the depletion of the nutrients and everything in your body when you're cutting weight, it takes its toll on your ability to absorb the power shots and that kind of stuff, in addition to the body mass and all the other things that it affects. So there is a little bit of an asterisk as far as Argueta goes, but that being said, for all of those factors, still really, really nice. And then again, that is even more of a credit to Cody Haddon winning this fight. The fact that he came in so heavy overweight. I mean, a 0.5 weight miss is like, that's a tough one because it's like, man, obviously they were really trying. They probably still depleted themselves and just couldn't do it. 2.5, man, that's pretty egregious. That's almost getting into the territory of the Al Hassan fight that got canceled with Josh Fremd, where, it's like, should we even do this? So Haddon a beast for taking the fight, and then even more of a beast for winning the fight. And the last thing I want to mention, because I thought it was pretty fucking dope, was that Haddon was actually in Orlando celebrating his win on the Contender Series when he got the call for this fight. So shout out to Cody Haddon for vacationing in the greatest state in the union. And right in my neck of the woods. If you're ever back, we'll have you on the show.
100%.
Right on. All right. So yeah, really nice work for Haddon. Let's move on to slightly less of a two-way fight, but still a decent performance on one side. This is Julia Pilastri versus Corey McKenna. What do you think of this fight?
I was actually going to ask you first. Do you think that this was the tipping point of when the card went downhill?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, at least it was the start of a decline, or like not even this was not a bad card. I think we're dogging it a little bit hard. There was the fights were not terrible. This was definitely the point where it started to kind of get into that sort of middling territory, I would say.
I thought this fight was amazing. Okay, amazing is crazy. Amazing is crazy.
Right.
I know I caught myself in the middle. I caught myself in the middle of that one. This fight was really good. I think that there was some sort of push, and this is why I want to talk about, okay, let's say first, Corey McKenna got cut after this fight. She did lose, and Julia Pilastri is an animal. I think she is really a killer out here. She put Corey McKenna up against the cage and kneed her I don't know how many times. And the reason I'm confused on why she got cut is because I think there was some sort of push for Corey McKenna. Joe Rogan would not shut the fuck up about how many shots she could take. Like he would be like, she's just figuring it out. She's just, she's just having a bad time. She's just downloading all this information. And I'm like, will you talk about how many knees, how many like great shots that Pilastri has just landed on Corey McKenna and just put her in the doghouse. Like she was doing it all, man. It was nice from Pilastri. I thought this was a great performance.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a great performance. Yeah, I'll backtrack it slightly to say that the reason that I thought that this fight kind of was the start of the dip is not because of Pilastri. It was because of McKenna trying to go to the well so many times, trying to get her own takedown when really what she was doing was playing right into Pilastri's hand. It was a really like decent fight IQ on one side and an unfortunately bad fight IQ on the other side, because Pilastri was so comfortable in the clinch. And this was one of two fights on this card. We'll get to it, the other one a little bit farther down, but where two fighters were on one side trying to utilize the clinch really, really effectively and getting all of that because the other fighter was very comfortable being in it and just taking all of what was being dished out at them. That was my issue with it. So this was not a bad fight in that sense. I mean, Pilastri looked really, really good, and she is a little bit beastly, man. I know I've seen her before, but I don't think I necessarily picked up on the toughness of her, because when she was in those exchanges in the clinch, I mean, there were times when they were trading knees early on in the first clinch encounter. And I was like, oh, they're just going right back and forth. But I mean, Pilastri, everything that she was putting on, including the knees in the clinch and then the striking when they finally did break, was really, you could see that she's pretty powerful, especially for, a smaller woman. I mean, she's actually kind of big for straw weight, but still, they're small ladies to begin with. So yeah, I liked Pilastri. I just thought it was unfortunate the way that McKenna was conducting herself in this fight, because she was overwhelmed and just searching for something that was not there. And then when she finally did find it at the end of the fight, it was way too late to do anything with it. That was what I kept thinking to myself. I'm like, by this time in the fight, we're talking round 3 here, you're still going for this takedown. You finally get it. You have maybe, I don't remember the exact number, but if we're saying, let's say it's a minute or less, what do you think that you are going to accomplish in that, unless your opponent is entirely gassed out to the point where they're just going to allow anything, which Pilastri was not. So yeah, it just was, I thought it was just unfortunate like that. And you are right that the commentary was doing a little bit of glazing. Rogan, not on the commentary, but I get your point.
Whoever the fuck it was, I don't know who that was. It not Rogan, bro. They sounded just like him. Whoa, that is absolutely crazy. I remember vividly. Holy shit. It was Bisping or something. It was Bisping.
Yeah, Bisbing Dom and Brendan Fitzgerald, I believe.
Maybe it was Brendan. I don't know, bro. They just wouldn't stop talking. No, it might have been. I don't know. It could have been any of them. It could have been any of them because they would not stop talking about Corey McKenna. I'm so confused on why she got cut for like after that because honestly, 8-4 for women's, it's like we've seen plenty worse. Like but I do see that she's been here for a good amount of time. Yeah, I mean, good names on here, not really great names. Whatever. Shout out Wales. I guess you're on your way out because the Welsh Gangster does have a fight coming up and he might lose too. So
yeah, that's a good point. The last note that I have about this fight is that it is kind of wild that this was a split decision. I have no clue. We had a lot of split decisions on this card. Some of them more appropriate than others. This was one I was like, what the fuck are you looking at? This was the clearest 30-27 that I could imagine. I mean, Palastri was all over it for every round of this fight, and everything that McKenna was doing was not working. So I do not understand where the split came from on that. I don't know. Maybe the judges were listening to the commentary.
dude, yeah. I guess the last thing that I'll say, and since we've seen a full career of Corey McKenna, she's just one of these women that, you never see them establish what their game is really like and never thrive at doing that. Like I've only seen her in 2 fights, but like she just came in and got manhandled in both of them. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I know, right? It just ends up being kind of like, all right, well, you're sort of just a filler at that point. There's really not too much to ascribe to you. The one thing I did want to ask, and I'm purely asking this as devil's advocate because I don't think that this is how the organization operates, but I do want to ask it anyway. Do you think that there may have been a little bit of a push for McKenna because she is a attractive lady? Do you think that played any part in why they were hyping her?
I'm not about to listen respectfully. I've seen a lot of pretty women in my days. If this is what they were pushing for the pretty prototype, I think that's a wrong assumption because there's plenty other ones. I think Palastri is actually a very attractive woman, to be honest. Listen, she's got some good looking thighs. She got a good look at the shorts. Were getting ate up. I appreciate her for wearing a small. You brought this up. This is what you brought up. By the way.
I opened a can of worms over here.
Palastri looked good. Shorts looked good. Thighs, bingo. And yeah, so I'm just saying,
so the answer is no, I guess then.
No on that part, but I really don't know. Yeah, I think it is the Wales thing. I think they're like, we got a Wales fucking woman, we got a Welsh guy or whatever. So either way.
Yeah, that would have been the other part of it too, is that the Wales aspect of it. Wales an underrepresented country in the sport, even though there are a couple, but primarily it was at least the ones I can think of. Her and Jack Shore are the ones that come to mind. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that McKenna has a kind of a girl next door kind of look, which I think they might have been, looking for. But anyway,
I'll buy it. Okay, I'll buy it because I will say I noticed she got rid of the t-shirt. She got rid of the shirt this fight. Corey McKenna came in with the actual tank top. So maybe they gave her some notes like, hey, we're going to give you some screen time this time. No shirt. We'll figure get the tank top out. We're good to go. And then she spoiled it. So
little additional coaching there, huh?
Listen, if that's what the story is and they wanted to give her a little extra commentary stuff, I'd buy it. I'd buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just devil's advocate because I don't really think that that's the case. But anyway, any which way, unfortunate, I would say that McKenna is now cut, from the organization, but somewhat appropriate. Perhaps she can go out and pick her skills up elsewhere and make another go of it, or get herself a little bit of traction in PFL or somewhere else. But as of right now,
LFA.
Yeah, LFA, is probably about right for where her skill set is at the moment. So, yeah,
if we're actually gonna continue with this talk, this is probably one of those skill sets where you just leave it on the table at this point. It's like you made it to the UFC, 8-4 in your career. You maybe made a good deal of money. Maybe go be a mom. I mean, I'm not trying to be like that, but like those are options that you have as a woman in this world. Like I'm trying to.
Yeah. That there is probably some validity to that based on the way that she has been fighting. Not to say that she couldn't go and fight
True
somewhere and
facts.
pick up some wins, but there I guess the options are now somewhat open to her. So we'll see what she ends up doing. And if she really wants it like that, if this is her dream and she wants to come back and really make a second go of it, then she's got a little bit of an uphill battle to make that happen. But not, it's not impossible yet.
Women's MMA, anything is possible.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to this is Junior Tafa versus a newcomer, Sean Sharif. This is Sharif's debut. What'd you think of him?
Let's make the note. Chris Barnett was the original opponent for this matchup with Junior Tafa,
Yeah.
and his home in Florida got destroyed by the Hurricanes, apparently.
Okay, hold on a second though. Did his house actually get destroyed by the hurricane, or was he prepping for the one that just passed? I think it was the first one, and I guess he did have home damage, right? Like that's the actual reality of it. Because I'd heard both
I
ways. I don't know if maybe I just got bad information.
I want to I have my own assumptions, so I want to say that next, but I heard on the commentary, I believe that it was his home that was like affected by the
Okay.
hurricanes, whatever
Yeah.
that means.
Sure.
In my opinion, he ducked, or where are you going to go back to if the home's destroyed? Where are you going back to Florida? You might as well have the camp. Go get you some money. Now you go fix the house. But that's
I
just
mean
me.
I mean, that you're making a point there. We don't know the full on reality of his situation. Perhaps he's
How you
got
gonna
people
go
to take
back to
care
the
of.
if it's underwater? How you going back by boat?
Well, no, yeah, not that, but I mean, if he's got family members to take care of or
Yeah,
other
true. I'm just bullshitting. I
considerations.
apologize, Chris.
Yeah, for real. Barnett's going to pop up in the chat any second now. But I mean, in reality, of course, as a Floridian who just also went through a hurricane, hearts out to him. That's awful, and we understand how bad that can be. So that does suck. But I mean, you do make a good point, though. I mean, like you'd think that he would want to go out there and get some cash to try to help all of that situation out. But I think that there also is something to be said for not taking a fight if you're mentally not there, because I
Yeah.
mean, losing everything that you own, or losing your house at the very least, is a pretty taxing thing on your mental game. So perhaps the right decision. I guess that's up to him to decide if it was or not, but that's the decision that he made.
And I wanted to bring it up too, is because Chris Barnett now has a fight coming up against the other Tafa now, which I thought, or no, actually, I think he stepped in. Sorry. The other Tafa stepped out. He stepped in for the other Tafa in their upcoming bout. So that's why I wanted to bring up Chris. Shout out him. All jokes aside. Yeah, hopefully everything is good. But this fight with Junior Tafa, this is the
Yeah.
Juggernaut. And in this fight, I think we actually got to see why he's called the Juggernaut. Like, I really enjoyed this fight from Junior. Couple of things I want to note. First off, I'm an idiot. I don't know where in the right mind I was like, this is going to be one of those random ones. This is going to be one of those random heavyweight fights that just goes to decision. Just believe me, it's going to decision.
Mm.
These two dudes specifically, they will never get to a decision in their life. They're going to die of exhaustion before the third bell gets there, because these dudes are incredibly, I know it's heavyweight, so me saying cardio unconditioned, like, I'm not trying to be like that, but it was really crazy to see like how quickly both of them were just hands down, just standing in front of each other, just like one of just like, please hit me, like, bro, no, you hit me, like, I'm done.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely. The
Yeah.
one situation that I think could lead to either one of these guys going to decision is if they fought Shamil Gaziev. That would be the one time that it could happen, because Gaziev would hold them down and then not do a fucking thing on the ground. So that could be, and that was the one big note that I have from this, was that if you go back and watch my watch along, had to do that one solo. So I'm in the same place that I am right now, screaming my fucking head off when Tafa got taken down, because we talk time and time again on this very show about the Tafas being prototypes for heavyweights who cannot do a fucking thing when they get taken down. I mean, it is like clockwork. If you want to beat a Tafa, get them to the ground and keep them there. That's really all that it comes down to.
I think it's crazy that this is what you bring up. We're going to sit here and talk about the one takedown that Buddy got. Okay, look at the stats. He was 1 for 8, and after he got that, I agree. I said, "Oh fuck, it's over." And I actually got
It
happy.
almost was.
I was like, "Oh, decision incoming." Like if he's gonna actually wrestle and just actually be able to get him down, but Junior got up. That's what we're misunderstanding the rest of the story. He got taken down, but this time he got up.
No,
And
you're
then
you're misremembering, my guy. He got up the first time because he did that crazy fucking acrobatics move, the circus tumbling move, where he kind of rolled on his back and kicked him off.
but
That was earlier in the fight. At the end of the round, he was kept down instead. He almost got finished at that point. That was before the third.
I don't know, bro. I
I'm
maybe
telling
you're
you.
right. Maybe you're right. Maybe the first one they didn't count as a takedown, and the one they did is the one you're talking about. But I remember at the beginning, you're right. He did some move, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's gonna like he did it. Like he's not on the ground. Like we're back to the feet. He's like punching, and like to the point, the juggernaut. These dudes were trading at a time. These dudes were hitting each other in the face pretty fucking hard, and like there was some good. Okay, Junior Tafa. Another thing because I'm a fan, so I notice all these things. I've been waiting for the time that this dude knows how to check a kick. Okay, I've been waiting for it. He's a glory kickboxer. He's a glory champion. How do you not know how to check a kick? And he came in here and he checked so many kicks like an idiot. I'll tell you that. He didn't lift his leg. No, he'd like turned his shin right into it. So after the end of the fight, he's limping away saying his leg hurts. And I'm like, well, I can see why, brother. But he was at least attempting to stop the offense. So I give Junior Tafa so much props on this fight. He got the finish because his opponent is a slob. The fat white slob archetype is here to stay. And Junior Tafa can beat him. I appreciate him.
Well, I believe that Sharif is Middle Eastern of some descent, but the point still stands.
Either way,
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that this was pretty much your typical heavyweight slugfest. As you've been saying, both these guys throwing, both these guys, really swinging for the fences early. Both of them gassed by the end of round one. So about as down the line as you get when it comes to heavyweight in that respect. And yeah, I mean, we've touched on pretty much all the points. I did think that Tafa deserves some credit for his little acrobatics move. Shout out to Andy from the chat who called that move the boing boing diggy diggy. That made me
what the fuck?
that made me laugh. So I thought that was props worthy for sure. And then yeah, I mean, I thought that the takedown really did anger me, not because of this fight specifically, but because of the pattern. And we talk about it so much to see it in real time yet again. I was just like, bro, God, does anything ever change with you? Or your brother? I mean, we'll see what happens in that fight. I'm not trying to put it on him just yet, whenever he fights next. But I guess one other point to mention, because they brought it up several times on the broadcast, is that Junior is apparently a light heavyweight normally.
Yeah.
I've seen him in plenty of heavyweight fights at this point. I guess they just keep booking him for that. But like, he seems very comfortable at heavyweight, and to be getting the wins at heavyweight, that's impressive in and of itself. So I give him credit for that as well.
I think that was like, in my opinion, that was kind of like a natural, like a given thing. It's like when you look at Junior and is it Justin Tafa?
Justin,
The
yeah.
other one, it's like you look at him, it's like, okay, Junior is definitely like a slimmer, like heavyweight kind of deal. It's like you check the weights, it's like he's a lot lighter than his brother. It's like, okay, I assume maybe his glory days he was like a light heavyweight kind of thing. But like now it's like, yeah, I think he stays heavyweight so he can be interchangeable with his brother kind of deal.
It seems like it, because like this is, I mean, not this specific one, but there have been other instances where they have literally been interchanged. So, yeah, I guess that they kind of come as a little bit of a package in some respects, but really you're kind of getting almost the exact same guy either way. So it's just the all they have to do is just get a little bit more well-rounded in the fundamentals. I say it time and time again because it bears repeating every single time that this happens.
I want to say, let me say one thing quick. Let me ask: am I hearing this correct? Was the Sean Sheriff dude? Was Sean Strickland in his corner also?
He was, yes.
Oh, okay.
He's was that Extreme Couture, I believe, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then, so I just wanted to ask to make sure. And then Junior Tafa, I think you're asking for a more well-rounded skill set. I think this specific showcase right here, again, the dude he faced is not fucking good. Let's not act like this was something that you had to showcase a lot of high level skill for. But Junior Tafa defended takedowns. He got up from some. He did his little acrobatic move, is whatever you want to say. He was, I think the leg checks. I think that was the biggest thing for me, is because not only was he checking the kicks, stopping them from, he was making Sean Sharif, whatever, not want to throw leg kicks anymore. He went 7 for 7 on leg kicks. He could have went 10 for 10. He could have went 15. He could have went 20 for 20. But at 7, he said, I'm done. Like, I'm tired. And 2, my leg probably fucking hurts because I was kicking shin the entire time.
Well, his leg, absolutely. I mean, and to that point as well, just to mention, Junior hurt his own leg in this fight. He was limping out of the cage. So yeah, I mean, both these guys going for it. You say the Char's not good. I mean, like I thought yeah, obviously he's got power. He nearly finished the fight in the second round. I mean, like had that round had more time on the clock, I mean, there's a very good chance that might have ended there. So. Maybe I think I'm talking it through and maybe giving this fight a little bit more credit after discussing it. But
let's not forget that the fight ended because they were just completely dead on the feet. Like there was no real. It wasn't like a knockout finish. It was just like just get him out of there. Just get him out of there, ref. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, and a good segue to my my last point here is that this was a good example. I know that we've talked on a previous stream about the merits of fights being stopped when the fighter is still on their feet. I'd say that this is a good example of a fight getting called on the feet making sense because Sharif was done.
To agree with a point in an earlier show, just so I don't contradict myself. If he was done, he could have fell to his feet. A fight should not be ended on the feet. I just don't feel it is like if you're gonna walk around hands down, it's like, brother, just fucking fall. Like I don't know, man. Like I don't know. It's just me.
But if they're not going to, then it's either not.
Well, you better not stop the fight, man. You better just let it happen. If you don't want to fall, man, we can keep going. Like I don't know.
You be stubborn. We'll agree to disagree. All right, fair enough. All right, cool. So, decent performance for Tafa overall, and obviously deserved win after everything that he went through in the fight. So,
thankfully, because look at the record, man, 6-3. It's like,
I know,
gosh, like how close are we to being? This is like when I see a record like that. Both of the brothers are like that, by the way. The other one's like 5-2. And I see this record, and I'm like, you're just skating on the lines of being cut. And I know you and your brother are a package deal kind of thing, but it's like, you both have the same like kind of shit record. Like you need to start fucking racking up wins like now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a point I was saying on the watch along coming into the fight. It's like, they really are right there on the line. So you are absolutely correct there. All right. So moving on, we got Nico Price versus Temba Garimbo. This was probably one of another version of different circumstances, but similar to the Palastri McKenna fight in that one side looked really decently sharp, if not a little wild, but still sharp enough to get the win. And the other side proved what I had already thought about them coming into the fight. What do you think?
I think the story is on Temba because
Absolutely.
I came in this fight saying the eye test just doesn't show me a superstar, like, or not even a superstar, but somebody that's like an extremely high level, deserving of like title implications type of fighter. And I come into this fight and I'm watching him, and I will agree, this is probably the best I've seen him, and I probably only seen him 2 or 3 times. But this is the best I've seen Temba Garimbo. This was the best fight that I think he showcased a well-rounded ability. But that's just the thing. It's like you went to decision with a dude that like got finished by Robbie Lawler in his retirement fight or whatever. If this is the best you're gonna look, you should have been finishing this fight somehow, some way. And the fact that you didn't, it makes me believe that I was right. Like this is just your run of the mill, decent to good fighter. This isn't a great to amazing,
Right. Yeah. Not necessarily super elite. Yeah. I would agree with that assessment. Their fights coming up could change that, but as of right now, I think that's somewhat accurate. Grimbo did look sharp, but the one thing that I noticed, and this will go for another fighter coming up a little bit later as well, is that he swings very wild and from very far distance at times, leaving himself wide open for counters. I would think that if any fighter, they were fighting welterweight, anyone in that division who watches this fight would be like, okay, there's the opening, there's the opening, there's the opening. I mean, like you could just go back and pick them out. So that's just one thing to note about him going forward. But luckily for Grimbo, Price is slow, which is what I had said on the watch along coming into the fight. People asked me what I thought was going to happen in this one. I said Price is just a slower paced fighter. And I think to a large extent, based on this fight, overestimates his skill on the ground. I mean, the commentary team was saying,
The hybrid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the hybrid. Sure. They're giving him all this credit for, just because he's on his back, he's just as dangerous there. It's like, yeah, no. I mean, the best he did on his back was a key lock for a little second. You know what I mean? It didn't even last. It was at the end of the round. And that was about it. And he was on his back for a whole heck of a lot in this fight. So, Grimba's grappling looks like it's leveled up, if my memory serves me. It's like you were saying, this is probably one of the better performances, if not the best, that we've seen from him. He's had a little bit of decent grappling before, but this is really improved levels of control, especially considering that Price is supposedly a BJJ guy. He's a BJJ brown belt currently, but that's somewhat questionable. And really what I also had thought for this fight is that now I really question Alex Morono because, I mean, I was riding with Morono in his fight versus Price. He did not win that fight. And then for Price to get roundly defeated by Grimbo here, it throws a lot of things into question for me.
Yeah, I agree. And even on the feet, like I said, best version of Temba on the feet, he was doing really well in the first round. Like he was popping up Nico real early, and I was like, oh, he might actually like finish him. Like Nico's going a little wobbly, like he has to get himself regrouped. But there was just after that, I was just like, well, I guess this is just back to the normal Temba Garimbo that I know. It's just like do bullshit until the fucking bell.
Well, but to minor counter to that, and shout out to our good friend Badger, Honey Badger in the Discord, the homie from the UK. His coach, Badger's coach, just pulled off a Suloev stretch in his amateur fight, and Temba nearly pulled one off at the end of this fight. So
yeah, I said that.
Yeah, so that is a kind of I guess at least an indication that there is some advancement there. But so would you call that bullshit necessarily? I mean, maybe to an extent if he couldn't pull it off, but still cool that he was even with it enough to know to do that, because it is kind of a crazy position to actually get yourself into and secure. So it's not your run of the mill rear naked choke kind of deal. So I give him some credit for that. And yeah, I mean, well, I want to give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt for his fights going forward, that he might still just be improving, because he is still newer, even though he's a little bit older, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's like 34 or something like that. I think
33.
33. Okay, so he's not not super
He's
up
also
there,
at Extreme Couture.
Oh, yeah, right. Yes, he is. Yeah. I remember that as well. Actually, I think that they had said that this was one of his first full camps with them. So, perhaps that's helping out. I mean, Eric Nixick, I've always said, as of recent at least, is one of my absolute favorite coaches. I think that he is really, really sharp. So, perhaps perhaps there's more from Garimbo in the future. We'll have to see what the deal is like with that.
Yeah, we're talking about more from him in the future. I'm being hard on him. He is 4-0 since losing his debut. So it does say something. 3 decisions, 1 knockout, whatever. Decision merchant or not, he's winning. So, and they're actually been all unanimous. So that is something to note.
Yeah, absolutely. So, decent for him. And, Price, he's getting into that territory where I really don't know if I care to see him fight too
Yeah,
much.
you're sitting on contract territory, brother. Like if
Yeah.
if you're on like your last couple of fights, we're wondering why the fuck you still here. So
Yeah, 16-8. That's starting to creep up there in the loss column, but see what happens with him. Anyway, moving on to Pat Sabatini versus Jonathan Pierce. Really enjoyed Pat Sabatini's performance. What do you think?
um when he came in the ring, I instantly recognized this dude. And I was like, why do I know who this dude is? This is the dude who got knocked out by Diego Lopez. I was like, okay, that's not a bad loss. So now I feel stupid for thinking that Jonathan Pierce was probably going to win. Because this dude, Pat Sabatini, he did look good. I'll give him that. And what was it, a rear naked? Yeah.
Yeah,
He was choking the shit out of bro. Yeah, it was a good one.
absolutely. I mean, off rip, Pat gets Pierce's back and just backpats immediately. I
Yeah,
was like, "There you go, bro! Talk about taking control of the fight from the jump." I mean, want to lead the dance. That's certainly one way to do it. One thing I did want to note, though, and I mean, maybe there's someone who's more well versed in grappling, wrestling exchanges that can explain this to me, but it seemed like a low fight IQ move, an extremely low one from an outsider's novice perspective here. But when Pat got the backpack, for some, to me at least, inexplicable reason, Pierce essentially pulled his leg directly into the body lock, right into the body triangle. Like Pat was on his back and Pierce just yanked his leg up, and then Pat was like, "Oh, okay, throw the other leg over and wrap it around the back." I was like, "Wow, you couldn't have made that any more easy if you had tried."
crazy person.
So yeah, a little bit strange there, but so he ends up dismounting from that one, but he's still all over Pierce. Like the pressure was just really great. He ends up getting a second backpack, and that's where the rear naked comes into play. So, I mean, really fantastic work from him. Body triangle just on point, and there's another one we'll talk about later on, but in this one, I was giving props to the homie Cody Gibson, who has one of the nicest body triangles in the game. I was saying that Cody would be very proud of the work shown off by Pat Sabatini in this fight.
So it seems to me Pat Sabatini is just a little. He got knocked out by Damon Jackson in the first round.
Yeah, there might be a slight chin issue with him.
That's kind of crazy, but for now we'll let it slide. This is a dude that you should be able to finish. Like this isn't somebody that's like super good. So shut up, Pat.
Yeah, absolutely. One other point that I wanted to make too was that Dom Cruz on commentary did make a really good observation, which he often does. Of course, Dom has very high fight IQ. So he had said in the ending sequence that Pierce stood up without addressing the problem that he had, which was the amazing body triangle that I've been praising so much. Because in doing that, he basically allowed Pat to continue the control that he already had. So it's like you have to do certain things in sequence to make everything make sense. You know what I mean? For yourself, as far as getting out of dangerous situations. If you don't address one thing, it reminds me a little bit of Tetris. I'm a Tetris player. It's like if you place one block, you're blocking yourself from another position. So like you have to address the first problem before you can get to the second one. So I just thought that was a good observation and an unfortunate set of moves from Pierce. And the last question that I have for you, because I have no idea and I have not been able to find anything online about this, do you have any idea what Jonathan Pierce's chest tattoo is? It looks like a null symbol or like a stop symbol.
Is it not, does Tim Elliott not have the same tattoo?
Does he? That might track. That sounds familiar when you say it.
I think it's like a team tattoo, is it not? I
It
don't
could
know.
be. Okay.
I get maybe like G.I. Joe vibes from it. I know it's not. That's not like the Snake Eyes little symbol, but I don't know. That's like a G.I. Joe logo or some shit. But I think it might be a team thing. I want to say Tim Elliott. Let me actually.
Yeah, that very well might be.
I want to say I want to say I've at least seen other people. No, not Tim Elliott. Who am I thinking?
I mean, he's also got a chest tattoo, but that's not the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's like a stop or like a null sign, but it's got one side is red and one side is green on the bar in the middle. So I don't know. I mean, we don't have to dwell on it, but
Yeah.
it was just something that I was like, because I've seen him several times at this point, and I'm always like, what does that mean? Could you please
Yeah.
explain it? But so far, no answers. If we get some answers, we will come back on the show and let you know.
100%.
All right. So rounding out the prelims here, this was quite an uptick in excitement here. This is CJ Vergara versus the newcomer Ramazan Temirov. This is Temirov's debut. He is fighting out of Uzbekistan, a country that is very much looking to become established in the combat sports world. It's got a decent foothold in its own region, starting to branch out into other ones. And this Temirov guy made quite the splash in his debut.
Yeah, I wanted to note that his nickname is Tamerlan. I don't know what that means. It's just
Maybe it's a magician thing. Maybe he's saying, he's the magic man.
yeah. I mean, it could mean anything to me, but I just wanted to note that it's kind of like it is like an iconic name. Like that's just like something you'll remember and like, oh, Tamerlan, like, oh, this is it. But anyway, he is 100% without a doubt. If the scale goes to 100%, I'm telling you, it is blasting off the radar. This dude is on something. This is the stockiest dude I've ever seen at flyweight. Like
Wild accusations.
I don't know what he was doing to get this physique, but holy shit, this dude is like jacked, you know?
Cut
It's
to
like
shit. You are not lying.
so, and I'm thinking like, oh, mountain guy, okay, sub, easy, sub or decision. This is what you got to do. But no, this guy is a powerhouse at a flyweight, at the flyweight, to come in here and drop nukes for just like and just chase people around, like not just sit there, stand in front of him and punch. It's like drop a bomb, make them go flying across the ring where you got to go track them down, drop 2 more haymakers. Like this dude, he was nice, man. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, a new flyweight with knockout power appears, man. I mean, this guy was going for it from the second that this fight started. He throws spin kicks, and those are very cool, but he also strikes from very, very far range. If we were talking about Temba Garimbo striking at range, at least Temba's got those long arms. Temba's kind of a lankier dude. He's got long limbs. This guy is throwing. I mean, there was one shot. It wasn't the one that actually started the finishing sequence, but at one point, I really want to say that he loaded up from like behind his head and just came over top. I mean, it was like, dude, you want to talk about winging shots? I was like, Jesus Christ, this dude is like asking to be countered with the style that he has. But if he can land them, which it did seem like, even with the wildness of the setup of the shots, he had some decent accuracy, and he was also nice with the in and out shuffle that he was doing. That's a big point with him. He was getting a little bit of the forward motion. If he didn't get what he wanted, he was able to reset pretty quickly. He's a fast guy, obviously a flyweight. So I was liking that aspect of it. I just thought that the wildness might come back to bite him at some point in the future, especially also because he throws combos sometimes with that wildness. I'm like, bro, if the first one doesn't get countered, the second one surely will,
Yeah.
But to the same point, though, when he is throwing those combos, oftentimes he's walking forward with them. So it's like maybe that'll work for him to counter the combination or the counters, perhaps. But that remains to be seen. What also remains to be seen, which I always say, is whatever he's got on the ground, because we didn't see any of that in this debut. And, whatever happened outside of the organization kind of just goes out the window, in my opinion, once you're in the big show fighting in the UFC. So we'll have to see about all of those things. But this dude throwing windmills and actually landing a couple of them was pretty crazy.
100%.
Yeah, enjoyed this performance. And one thing that I thought was kind of humorous was that when the left and the follow-up shot landed for Temirov, he had CJ running somewhat akin to Chelsea Chandler for a second there. It wasn't straight across the cage, but it was round the side, and he was certainly sprinting in the opposite direction. And one other point too that I think is always good to note, because I love to see it, is body shot finishing. That was the first couple of them were the setup. The final one that dropped Vergara for good was a body shot. and we're starting to see a little bit more of that nowadays, which I'm really, really a fan of. You love seeing people mix up their shots in general. It's a more impactful, I would say, way of conducting yourself in a fight. You're throwing people off for first, and then of course you have the opportunity to get a TKO like that. So I was very happy to see that as the conclusion of this fight.
100%.
Yeah, very nice. All right, so moving on to main card here now. We start off with Daniel Rodriguez and the aforementioned Alex Morono. D-Rod sporting some fresh ink, some new designs on his skull and about his body. I think that there's getting fewer and fewer spots where he's going to be able to put tattoos. What do you think of the fight?
I was gonna question, do you think that this was judged properly in the end?
You know, I do. After watching it back, I think that it made sense. I think that the second two rounds did go Rodriguez's way. In the moment, I might have. I think I might have even had Morono in the second during the watch along. Upon the rewatch, I kind of swung it a little bit. I think that I do. I do think that it went the right way. Do you not agree with that?
No, I do. I think this is one of the fights. This was like a fan judged fight, in my opinion, because this was just a true dog out of Daniel Rodriguez. Like, he just really just did not quit. He wanted to win this fight. If this was a fight that you could, like, as a fan, you could pick a winner, I think I would have picked Daniel Rodriguez just for the performance that I saw from him. Like, he really,
in the second two, at least in the second two rounds.
It took him a second. And Alex Morono, even if he got the first round, it didn't phase Daniel Rodriguez. He knew that the second and third round, I'm just going to be able to walk forward, put the pressure, and he got it done, man. That's all. I think he really did it. I think that was a good call by them.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it was a solid scrap on both sides. This is one that even in loss, Morono doesn't have much to be ashamed of overall, I would say. The only thing with him is that the gas tank is just something that he really needs to address because by the second round, especially once D-Rod started to really turn his striking up, the noticeable wear was definitely there in his face and in the way that he was throwing his shots. It looked like he was slowing down a little bit earlier than I would have liked him to. It's not that he slowed down entirely, because both of these guys are, I don't want to be too harsh, but if we're being 100% frank, they're both kind of journeymen. I mean, I don't think that there's really any true potential for higher ambitions for either of these guys based on what I've seen in the last couple of them. If I'm not mistaken, Rodriguez was coming off of 3 losses in a row.
Yeah. Coming in at the favorite in this matchup, which, I mean, arguably so.
Yeah, kind of wild on that. And then, of course, Morono also coming off of at least 1 loss there. So, if not 2. So, I mean, both these guys, I think it was actually a pretty even matchup based on where they are in their careers and what their output generally is in a fight. So nothing to be ashamed of on Morono's side of the equation, because he was leading the dance in the first round. The first round solidly went to him. Second round was close. Upon rewatch, I'd say that D-Rod did edge it out well enough. He ended up putting a pretty heavy knot on Morono's forehead for the trouble there. And that third round, I mean, whether it was conserving for late game or playing possum or however you want to put it, or maybe just realizing that he was down on the first round, Rodriguez really turned it on in the third and looked really nice. So, I'd say the split decision, I'm not furious at it, but it is slightly sus. But overall, it worked out in the end, and decent fight.
I want to say, to bring up your point with Alex and the gassing and the weight, I thought coming into this fight, I looked at him and I was like, he looks noticeably slimmer. Like, I thought he looks in better shape than I saw him last fight. So the fact that he did gas out, it makes me question, did something go wrong? Because it looked, in my opinion, he looked like he was game. He might have even had a little 6-packs going there,
Maybe maybe at the right angle, but
you can see it in that picture right there.
I mean,
with the right angle in the UFC lighting, it's good.
Yeah, that's
to the point.
Old shot.
Yeah, well, I was questioning is this a different, are they coming down for this? Was this middleweight and now they're coming down? But the fact that he gassed out so early, I do feel like something went wrong. Like, but it looked like he was trying. So I'm not sure what exactly happened there.
Yeah, well, I think that that's just it. Is that he sort of just does gas, though? You know what I mean? Like that's just one of the areas that he hasn't been able to just get right. To be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, I think that that was somewhat apparent in the Nico Price fight as well. That he's just a dude that puts a lot out there early, which you saw in this fight for sure. I mean, the first round. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that it just doesn't look like he necessarily has a ton of power in his hands. So when he does lay a lot out there, it's really just massive amounts of pointing. And he comes walking to the cage with his black belt wrapped around his neck. And it's like, I mean, not a single instance at all of takedowns. Right? They're counting some stuff here. Whatever, maybe, like maybe there's something that I'm misremembering, but for the most part, if they're saying Rodriguez 1 of 1 was at the very end of the fight, that was literally like within the last, like, I'd say 20 seconds or so. And they're counting one attempt for Morono. But I mean, like, this fight was on the feet the entire time. It's like, bro, if you're a black belt and you're proud of it, wearing your belt around your neck there like a chain, maybe you might want to do some of that. Perhaps.
I think another telling thing is just like Alex Morono's striking numbers. Like I look at the head strikes, 58 for 228. It's like something went wrong here. Like Daniel Rodriguez is not some elusive fucking boxer. Like you can land strikes on it. So
I
the
mean,
fact
that was the note on the commentary. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off,
yeah,
but
you're fine.
that was the note on the commentary, was that Rodriguez, like, he throws his shot and then just stands there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, sorry, continue.
No, yeah, exactly. And so like it's that's when I'm just like I'm looking at the storytelling itself. Like I watched the fight and then I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at what I saw, the eye test here. It's like something just wasn't right for Alex. And I don't know if that means like maybe the end is coming for him because like you said, a couple losses. Shout out Daniel Rodriguez for, losing 3 and then being able to come back and get another one, but you're losing a couple bad losses now. Nico Price, Daniel Rodriguez is like, who are you going to win against? Who can we put you against to win? So,
Yeah, that's really why I kind of have them classed in that journeyman category. And I don't say that to be mean. I really don't. I honestly, well, Rodriguez is a little bit of an asterisk as well because of the PED pop, but Morono I've always been a fan of. I mean, well, yeah, look,
it's like a random dude to pop PEDs. He looks like not a PED type of dude,
Yeah, that's often the case. It's a funny thing with that because you obviously your first instinct is to think that the guys who are juicing are going to be these super cut genetic freak kind of guys. But yeah, I mean, strange, definitely strange, and they'll all go back to tainted supplements, and that's I'm sure that there's some merit to it for some fighters more so than others. Whatever. A pop is a pop to me at this point. Like, just you be more on top of that kind of stuff. So it's always going to be just a little lingering thing in the back of my mind with Rodriguez. But overall, I don't dislike him in general, and Morono I've always been a fan of. So it's not like I don't like these guys, but just based on everything that we've said now and what we've seen in previous fights, it's like you said, who are you really gonna beat? And even with those wins, what is it going to do for forward motion?
Yeah.
So, all right. So there you go. Moving on to the man with the wife with a dump truck over here, Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. I know that Grant Dawson is your favorite fighter, Chase. So what do you think of this one?
I think a couple things I want to know.
Sure.
The first one is that Grant does. I shout out to him because he is. I don't know if you caught this. I don't know if it's Bud Light or whatever the commercial is that Dustin Poirier has whenever the show's going on. Mm-hmm. Grant Dawson is the one that loses to Dustin Poirier in like his little dream skit or whatever. So
I did not. That's funny.
They don't show him. It's like really dark and he's like got his head down or whatever, but it's Grant Dawson. And another commercial that has a UFC fighter in it is Jonathan Pierce. I wanted to bring that up earlier, and the reason I know is because he has that fucking tattoo, but I couldn't remember what commercial it was. Grant Dawson, though, is in the Dustin Poirier one.
All right.
Okay. So to start with that, he was able to finish a person who has never been finished. We have been begging for it. We've been asking, do something so impressive that is gonna, make us remember you. And I hate to break this to Grant Dawson, and I think it just makes me feel like I'm expecting greatness from you, because at the end of the first round, I said, Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. He's just going to wrestle again
Here
and
we
do
go
nothing.
again.
Here we go again. And so I'm watching the second round, and as soon as he gets the takedown, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm like absolutely over. He's just going to sit on top of him. The fight's over. That's it. Cool. And then he gets the finish, and I'm like, okay, I maybe should have gave him a little more credit in the moment, but I even maybe have said this is a person you should have finished, which a person who's never been finished, maybe that was an incorrect statement. I still think there's better for you, Grant Dawson. This is a finish that, yes, you should have had. Yes, you did. But like, I'm ready to see more, brother. You showed the fancy kicks, the taekwondo. Show me on the feet. Because the wrestling shit, I'm tired of it, brother. I don't give a fuck if that's what you're good at right now. Go out there and strike with somebody, please. If it's not Bobby Green, I think you'll have a chance. Because for some reason, you trying to strike with Bobby. That's the crazy part. It's like when you went into the Bobby Green matchup, like they were highlighting you as like a striker. Like, oh my God, he's going to come out here, blah, 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 blah. And then you go out here in the first exchange and then you get dropped by a jab. Like, I get it. I don't know what happened. And I get the wrestling is working for you. But after that first round, boy, you are lucky you got that finish, because I might have turned the fucking TV off. Like, Austin, I just expect so much from you. You could have done that in the first round. That's my point. I guess that's my point. Is like, why didn't you, if it was that easy, you want to make it blah, 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 blah. Why didn't you just get him down in the first round and elbow him? Why the fuck were you wrestling with him for a fucking post-fight speech or not? I didn't even listen to it because I was still flustered at the time. So I had to hear it on Twitter later.
All right. Well,
that was a good one. So go on. You're good.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, obviously a lot of opinions there for sure. Yeah, I mean, really, there's not too much to say about all of what was going on. I think you're making some good points. Early takedown for Dawson and all ground thereafter in the first, and second, the exact same thing. The one thing I will note, it's like you had said about the elbow. He might have needed to wear down Garcia a little bit in the first, get him a little bit tired because he hasn't been finished. And, he's a guy who, he's generally a pretty tough guy from what I recall, obviously, if he's, out there doing his thing and making it to the decision or to finishing on his side of the equation. So, I was not upset with any of that. And the elbow that cut Garcia cut him heavy, because by the time that fight was finished, the pool of blood that Garcia was in was quite noticeable. One of the heavier cuts and heavier bleed outs that we saw on this card. So, I wasn't, I guess I'm just a little less critical of Dawson in general, just because, honestly, I don't know why. I guess, it doesn't bother me as much that he is just a wrestling guy. But you are right, though, that you need to show, because he's talking about, any guy that comes in here, I can take them out. The guy who's undefeated, I will be the one to defeat them. Blah blah. This, he's talking all this heavy game in his post fight. It's like, bro, we need to see some hands out of you if that's going to be the case, because he's talking about wanting to make the run, and I mean, he is 22-2. I mean, that's certainly a record that would lend itself to the ability to make that happen, but we need more. We need more out of you, dude. We need a better, more well-rounded version of you to make sure that you are capable of hanging with the big dogs, keep holding your own up there with the guys who are really going to give you the test. Because if Bobby Green was the guy that was able to expose you in that one fight, then you're already at a deficit, and we've talked about Grant specifically on this show, saying that, you write your own story here. He's continuing to write the same story. And I think that's why Chase is feeling how Chase is feeling,
Yeah. And it's like anybody that you're looking ahead to face, the striking is going to be where the fight starts. And most of the people that are above you, their wrestling is just as good to stop you from getting it to the ground. And even if they do get it to the ground with you, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead, Grant Dawson. Get it to the ground with Charles Oliveira. Good fucking luck, brother. Like,
yeah, good point.
So
yeah,
I just think,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just think a great finish. Grant Dawson, you're still on to bigger and better things. Just keep on the track, stay humble, and I'm riding with you. I know I'm hard, but like it's because I really want to see great things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is, as we say all the time, all you have to do is do those things. All you have to do is impress in the way that you need to as an elite fighter, and the whole conversation changes. So, uh,
100%.
okay, to the point of the post fight, and again, this is just a little devil's advocate conversational kind of stuff here, just outside of the fight itself. Is there any tackiness in what he said? I mean, I don't care at all. I thought it was funny, and it was a little bit odd, especially with his wife being in the crowd. But what'd you think?
I think I lied to you earlier and said I listened to it on Twitter. I never listened to it. I just
Oh,
read
okay.
I read the thing
Uh
because it was actually pretty cringe. I didn't want to hear him say it. So if that answers your question, yeah, it was pretty fucking cringe to read and listen to, let alone I'm glad I didn't hear it. Like,
Fair, yeah. I mean, it was. She laughed at it. Obviously, she didn't seem super.
yeah, the fact they had the camera ready to show her, like, hey, here she is, like, here's the bitch with the big booty, like, fuck.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, again, I don't really care too much one way or the other. I could see people thinking that it was somewhat cringy. In context, I mean, I
What
don't think that he.
context?
Well, I mean, he was in the process of praising her for other stuff.
True, true. Okay,
So,
okay.
like, what I mean? It was like he was saying, how supportive she is, how she's such a great wife. That's the one thing that I love her so much is her supportiveness. Well, no, actually, it's the one thing I really really love. And I was
Yeah,
like, all right. I mean, it's I guess it just was in the flow of what he was saying. Fine, whatever. I could see it being perceived as a little bit cringy, but it didn't bother me all that much. I guess it's just a subjective thing, however you view it. But I didn't know if you
yeah.
had an opinion about it or not.
No, yeah, not too much. I mean, we hear a lot of stupid stuff on the mic, so it's really hard to pick point and be like, "Oh, that one's the dumbest," you know?
Yeah, definitely not the dumbest for sure. We've heard way dumber than that. But
Yeah.
anyway, all right, whatever. Moving on, we got a fight that infuriated me. This is Chidi and Jukuwani versus Jared Gooden. Gooden, of course, one of the weight missers by 1.5 pounds. What'd you think of the fight?
Oh my goodness. So I don't know if you saw it. I was gonna send you a video just to see if you would be able to. I don't want to like have you pull up Twitter the whole thing, but this video of Jared Gooden before the fucking fight. I don't know if you saw him warming up.
I
Um,
did not. Let me see if I can get this
it
up
is
here.
very crucial for you to understand that people saw this coming.
Okay, hold please. Okay,
People saw this coming as soon as this video was put out.
yeah, let me cue this up. Give me just one moment.
Uh-oh. I want you
Uh,
guys to understand how bad of a video this
all
is.
right, here we go. So this is Jared Gooden warming up
This was
for.
posted by Dana White too originally, by the way.
All right. Well, let's see it then.
Dude's terrible,
I
man.
mean, just very, very slow. I
Very
mean,
awful.
I don't know. Pad work. I never really judge off of it because you never know how much intensity they're actually trying to put out when they're
But anyway,
doing this.
so I wanted to make a point that when everybody saw this, when I saw this after the fight, I said, yeah, I made stupid pick on verdict. And because this guy, Cheaty, is an animal. This guy has got crazy instincts. I know that's the first thing I'm going to start off with, and that's a weird thing, but like seeing just like how his body reacted outside. So when he was in situations, he's kneeing, he's elbowing, and then when Jared Gooden would like slip out of the situation, he would just hit him with a little extra elbow on the way out. Like his body would just like react to it, like just like, oh, here's his head. Like I gotta just get an extra strike in there. Cheaty had him in the clinch. He was eating them up with the knees, the elbows. This was just such a good fight to watch somebody lose because that Jared Gooden dude just he sucks. Like he's just not like I don't know what he offered. Like the striking numbers I'm looking at right now, I can't tell you that he landed one strike. I'm going to tell you that right now. He did not look good in the slightest, in my opinion. Chidi
Yeah,
was the
all of
entire
those.
story.
Yeah, all of those are probably like short shots inside when he was being clinched up because he was so readily accepting being clinched up. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so I mean, as I said, this fight infuriated me because of Gooden. I mean, you're right. It was a really really nice performance for Njukwani. This was just a full stop pathetic display as far as Jared Gooden went. I mean,
Yeah.
he tried to wrestle, couldn't, and Chidi had a fucking field day in the clinch. Knees, elbows, all day long from Chidi, the entire fight. That's really the full story of it. As you said, the story of the fight is completely Chidi and Njukwani, 30-27 easy. This would be, I mean, we talked about Fremd and McKenna getting cut. I would say that this performance reminded me, for different reasons, but it reminded me of William Knight. I don't know if you remember William Knight, but he was a dude who came out here, and in his fight, he looked so like he didn't care to be there. He looked like he did not care. That was what it like his body language was showing. He was really going through the motions, and he ended up getting cut after that fight that I'm talking about. This smacked of that for different reasons, but the same outcome would have been appropriate in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, so that's really what I thought about that. I did a little bit of research. If you want to indulge me here for just a second,
Okay.
because of how bad Gooden was fighting in this fight, I wanted to see if he had been coming off of a lot of losses because I knew that he had a nice win actually over Wellington Turman in his debut. So I was like, he got a first round finish in that fight. I was like, is this guy like, was that just a complete fluke? What's going on here, right? So I went to his Tapology, and the win before that was in an organization called the UFL. And I saw that the method of victory was listed as stomp. Now, stomping is generally an illegal move in MMA when it's to the head or to the body, even as well. I mean, like you're stomping on the ground is pretty much universally illegal. So I was like, what happened here? So I watched that fight, and basically what happened was his opponent was, sad to say, I mean, no disrespect to this guy, but his opponent was worse than him and had just essentially gassed himself out in the second round to the point where he basically fell over. Like it was one of those situations where he just the switch just got flipped and he
Yeah.
gassed himself out to the point of falling over, and that was essentially the end of the fight. And like a fucking dummy, Gooden goes in and does stomp him right as the ref is stopping the fight. So in addition to this sucker ass performance that we just saw here, he also has a low fight IQ in the recent past. This shit was like maybe 2022 at the earliest, if not 2023. So we're talking, I don't know. Anyway, that is all. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Not because of anything that I've witnessed or anything that I've researched, is because at the beginning of the fight, just the way that he was smiling when they were introducing him and just the look on his face, like he's just such a smug fuck. Like, oh my goodness. So the fact that he got his ass beat was really good. And this is one of the fighters that I'm really happy that we're in a sport that's so glorious, because Dana, he don't forget. You're going to see Jared Gordon against this next up and coming killer. Like, whatever the fuck's about that, he's going to get knocked out next. And then he'll be on his way out the league. The last fight, Dana will make sure you get yours after you screw him over for coming out here with this lackluster performance. You're going to go get choked out. You're going to get knocked out. And then you're going to get cut. That's what this performance is about to get you. We'll see. Listen, I can't tell the future, but I'm saying some crazier things have happened.
Yeah, no, and I would tend to agree. If he's not going to be cut, if he didn't get cut in that in the wave that we just had with Fremd and McKenna, then I would think that he is certainly going to be on the next wave. 23-10, by the way. Just keep that in your mind as well.
Yeah, that is a pretty decent record, but I also wanted to bring up, since you brought up the wave of removals that we've been having. We've been getting some pretty consistent removals from the UFC for the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Like, I mean,
I mean, making it's like you say, making room for the new guys. You know, if you're not
Extra season of Contender Series coming up next year, maybe.
I mean, you know, we get it once a year. It's you know, you got a lot of new guys, a lot of contracts going out this year. Honestly, I mean, this has been a pretty contract rich run of the Contender Series compared to some of the earlier ones. So yeah, I mean, freeing up some space for some new guys, and yeah, I mean, really, I think it's completely fine because what it does is keeps every one of these fighters on their fucking toes. In fact, the fact that Fremd was one that got cut just off of the weight miss, I thought was fantastic because that should also be uh, one of those things that you're constantly considering. Is, you know, don't think that you can just go in there, miss weight, and you'll just get another shot. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm completely fine with it, dude. I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, or occasionally there are going to be some guys where you're like, damn, that sucks, or you're not going to necessarily have a reason that you can readily go to as to why it happened. Ziggy Mantis from the Ultimate Fighter comes to mind, but you know, I think that those are somewhat rare because overall, the majority of these people have had a number of times to either prove that they belong or prove that they don't. So, yeah, I'm overall okay with it. Do you feel differently or?
Uh, hmm, the some I do question, but obviously maybe they're just having more, um, maybe more involved talks with the roster. Like, hey, is this what you want to continue doing? Maybe they're just cutting contract shorts. Maybe they're just getting more involved. Maybe the fighters are being more honest. Like, no, I don't want to be here anymore because I'll give my opportunity to somebody else. Obviously, that's easier said than done, or probably not what people do. But like, fighting ain't for everybody forever. Like,
Yeah,
some people
it is.
just want to and it's a job for some people, not a career. It's like, okay, I've made my money and like I'll go do something else now.
Yeah, either that or you know, looking for opportunities in more favorable promotions based on the skill set that they have. I mean, you know, Impa Kasanganai comes to mind often when we talk about this kind of a conversation. You know, he was a dude who was in the UFC, wasn't really having much success, goes over to PFL and has now won the tournament, got himself $1 million off of it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there are other opportunities available depending on where your skills actually lie and you know, what trajectory you want to be on. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's good. And also really, I think that from the UFC's perspective, they are always constantly having to double down on being the greatest promotion in this sport because there are other ones. I mean, granted, none of these other ones are really giving them any true level of competition right now, but that's not how it might be in the future. It's like, you know, it's the same thing of like Coca-Cola still advertising. It's like, yeah, everybody knows what Coca-Cola is, but they still advertise because they need to maintain what they
Yeah.
are. So, yeah, so I think it's fine. And yeah, you know, bringing it back to this fight that we're talking about here with Chidi and Jared Gooden, it now shows one. This is actually a good fight for this conversation because on the one side you have Gooden, who is what, you know, basically in that camp that we just outlined, and on the other side you have Chidi and Jukwani, who has been here for a long time, who has proven that he belongs here and deserves to, you know, continue moving up and taking bigger and better fights and getting a performance that reinforces that. So
Yeah.
I'm completely okay across the board with all that.
Yeah. 100%.
Your mic, you might want to adjust that thing that you got going on
Oh,
there.
oh, oh.
So as he does that, while Chase gets his mic figured out there, we're gonna move on here. Actually, no, before we move on, I did want to mention one other thing. Um, that Chidi and Jukwani says that he'd be willing to do a fan's choice fight. And what I said on the watch along is that this might be a job for the MMA Hive. Shout out to the Discord. We might have to get a little bit of a groundswell going for Chidi and Jukwani's next fight. And shout out to Bloomis, the homie from the Discord and the chat often. He said that he thought Nicholas Dalby might be a good name for him.
There we
I said,
go.
all right.
Shout out Denmark.
Yes, absolutely. Shout out Denmark indeed. Yeah, you might want to do your little adjust. Try to get that thing a little bit tighter
Is it
seated, pal.
louder? What do you need?
No, it sounds just like muted a little bit, or like you're coming in from a different source or something. Stand by, folks. Little
Yeah, one
technical
second.
aspect.
Let's see if we can get it a little better. Hold on. Let's unplug it. We'll plug it back
Yeah, it's unplug and replug there first.
in. Anything better?
No.
Better. What
No,
is
yeah,
it
you're
doing?
yeah, a little weird.
Is it doable?
Oh, it's doable. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
if you
okay.
have to, if oh
I
yeah,
mean,
you're straight if you want to continue.
yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think that's was. I mean, ain't nothing wrong. It's on.
Yeah, all right, whatever. We'll rock with it. So yeah. So anyway, that if anyone out there is interested in trying to get Chidi Njokuani's next fight to be the fighter of their choice, he's open to it. Let's get a little campaign going. Start getting your tweets out there, because one thing that we know from the past is that the organization does listen when the voices are loud enough. So,
100%.
all right. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we had Brad Tavares versus Jung Park, the Iron Turtle. What'd you think of this fight?
I thought they both did really fucking good, and I thought the Iron Turtle obviously turned it up towards the end of the fight, and he was doing really like it's crazy to think that he just stands in front of you and he's gonna trade. Like he will just continue walking forward. You can land, but he's gonna come land some too, and it's crazy that he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest. He really is just out there working. Like it's kind of crazy to think he's just it's no pause. He's a grinder. You know, he grinds his victories to a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've said it plenty of times about him, that how crazy it is to me that he is just a guy that somehow, some way, will walk away from a fight with a win. It's baffling sometimes. I mean,
Yeah,
especially also considering in this fight, Brad dropped Park in the first round. So it was
first
like,
2 fucking seconds. You know, whatever it
exactly.
was.
Yeah, exactly. From the jump of the fight, Tavares got a knockdown. So I mean, with all of that, you'd think it's like, how much more does he need to do? Well, obviously a little bit more, because yeah, I mean, it ended up going Park's direction. You are correct that the pressure is really nice on the Turtles side. I mean, he coming into round two, just immediately pressuring, keeping Brad on the cage, on the back foot. Park takes the second round, so I had it go 1-1 going into the third round personally. On rewatch, you know Park gets the takedown but doesn't do much with it, but does keep it for most of the round. So 2-1 Turtle, I guess, does kind of make sense, but it was. I initially thought that Brad might have taken the fight on the watch along, and the split decision certainly did seem warranted to me. But and on the rewatch, it's like, all right, I do understand the thought pattern from the judges. So, I mean, did you agree with the decision or what?
I thought this was a decent decision. I thought because I watched this the night after, so when I listened to everybody talk about robbery, it could have done this, could have done that. I thought this was fine. Iron Turtle controlled the fight towards the end of it. Like I said, he turned it up in the second and third round. If you want to talk about the first round being close, well, you had the knockdown, so Brad obviously took that one. But no, I thought this was fine. The wrestling, it was enough to be controlling and like not boring, but also effective. And he wasn't, going for subs necessarily. So I thought this was fine.
Yeah.
Didn't dislike watching it.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty entertaining fight overall. I enjoyed it. I'm a fan of the Iron Turtle, man. I think that he's one of those guys that it's like, really at this point, I just kind of want to see how it's going to go down that he gets the win. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like watching like an action movie. You know what I mean? It's like, that the hero is going to win in the end, but it's how he gets there that's important. So. I like it. I'm okay with all of that. And, I mean, really, that's kind of all I have to say about this fight. It wasn't, there really wasn't all that much crazy, unique talking points about it. It was a pretty straight down the line kind of
Yeah.
fight. And that's pretty much all she wrote.
Yep, just a grind matchup. I mean, this is just one that for a co-main event, it was more. I don't know this. I think this was more on Brad's part. It's like, this was like passing, not passing of the torch, but like he's passing Michael Bisping in most, middleweight fights or whatever. So this was like just to get him on the board, get him in the history book. It's a good fight that he's not going to get like knocked out, embarrassed, kind of deal on his like Hall of Fame kind of moment. Hall of Fames. I probably shouldn't even say it like that, but
I was like, that might be a little much.
his legacy moment, whatever you want to say. This was a good fight to end. Could have went either way, if you want to say. So shout out Brad. He's been here forever. Like, what was it? Like 15 fights? Like, he's 20-11. Like, he must have started at like fucking, let's see, UFC 125 in 2011, and he was coming off, 7 fights before that.
Yeah.
Well, he was on the Ultimate Fighter. Sorry, so that was before that.
Yeah.
So 5 fights before. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, a long time guy. That's also kind of why it does sort of break my heart a little bit, because it's like I want to see Tavares succeed. And, he's just been one of those guys. We talk about the candy cane records. He's been starting to get a little bit on the wrong side of that lately. It does look like, the sun might be setting on him just a little bit. But really, fights like this are exactly why he should hold his head high going out if he does end up going out, because he's a real scrapper. He's not a dude who's going out there trying to look for the easy way out or the easiest path to victory. He will stand with you. He will take the shots. The dude has been doing it for a long time for a reason. So I'm a fan of both of them. And to Brad's point, it's like I don't know how much longer he will be around. We'll have to see what ends up happening there, but yeah, it did kind of sting a little bit, especially considering that I thought it was a very close fight, and and it was a split decision. So there was at least one judge who gave the fight to him, and it could have extended his run even that much longer. But yeah, now it's a little bit questionable as to what's going to happen with Brad Tavares.
Yeah, and it sucks because like you look at when we talk about what's next, it's like when I look at him, I'm like, oh, this is a dude who actually can compete if he wanted to. Like if obviously the UFC has to give him a contract type of deal, but like then you go back to his record and it's like 2 losses, win to Chris Weidman, which I agree, he beat the shit out of Chris Weidman, kicked the fuck out of the dead leg, the cursed leg.
Hell yeah, he did.
And then God, that was a funny video you made on that one. Fuck, that was funny about Chris Weidman throwing the cursed leg. That was a good one. Sorry, you just got me sidetracked. But yeah, and then
that.
And then 2 losses here back. Gregory Rodriguez and then Iron Turtle. It's like I see a competitor and I see an athlete who belongs in this sport, but you're losing, and split decision or not, it's like the league can't keep around losers all their time.
Right. And Tavares is one of those guys that's in that unfortunate spot where he is a longtime fighter, but he doesn't have necessarily the same fan base and fan support as some of the other longtime fighters who they'll keep around for longer based on that alone. So, it really just ends up being one of those situations where it's like, dude, we respect what you've done. You've got nothing to be ashamed of, but everybody has their time, and I don't know if that's yet. I'm not trying to put that on him just yet. We got to see what the organization does with him. I would suspect that they end up putting him against the young, hungry guy. That would be my initial instinct is some, dude coming off of a couple of really impressive wins, give Tavares to that kind of a guy to, round out the record a little bit more, maybe, kind of build the reputation off of, because he's a known enough name to people who follow the sport that a win over him still does hold a little bit of water, I would say. So yeah, that would be my initial instinct as to what it would be, and then thereafter it would probably be a kind of a thanks for everything kind of situation.
100%.
So we'll see what happens though. But again, to close this thing out, nothing to be ashamed of on Tavares' side, because this was a close fight and a good fight.
Yeah.
And speaking of good fights, motherfucker, this main event was fucking beautiful. This was, if there were lulls in the card here and there, performances were good, but not necessarily the greatest fights overall, yada, yada. This main event made up for everything. This is Brendan Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. Wow.
I'm going to say this is the definition of a back and forth. This
Yeah.
was this was crazy, and I'm glad that I changed my predictions video. I came back and I decided, like, you know what, I'm forgetting who Brandon Royval is. I'm forgetting this dude will light you up with strikes from the minute the bell goes to the end. He's gonna put a clinic, and to think he landed 172 out of 287. And if you take away the 2 rounds that he was on the ground for all of it, it's like, yo, he was gonna kill the kid if it stayed some more rounds on the feet. Because and I say that is because Brandon Royval did a great job at the end, finally getting off the ground. He did not let Taira hold him there for the entirety of the 5th round. He knew what he had to do, and it came in at the perfect. Talk about clutch.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I know we don't talk about clutch gene, in this sport too much because it's kind of hard to. But this right here, the 5th round hit, Brandon Royval knew I gotta win this fucking fight, and I know how to do it. And Jesus fucking Christ, the flyweights, they've never listen. They've never looked better than this fight right here. This was crazy right here. I loved it. I'm telling you, this was great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get into my thoughts on the fight itself in a second here, but to the point of the flyweights in general, I mean, I think, and this might be slightly spicy, but because don't get it twisted, because I do like Pantoja, but I think that once Pantoja is dethroned, that this might end up being the most entertaining division, really. I mean, like when we have a champion that's going to be fighting this kind of a fight, as opposed to the very wrestle heavy, sort of slowed down version that Pantoja, kind of puts on. Even though his fight with Moreno was still pretty goddamn entertaining because of Moreno, and I mean, and what Moreno was making him do. I just think that Pantoja as champ, like once it's gotten to undisputed, and after the Moreno kind of era sort of tapered off there, after of course Moreno with the long-standing back and forth with Figueiredo, who's left the division, their quadrilogy of fights. Yeah, I think that Pantoja has kind of slowed down the belt a little bit. Not in the sense that he's holding it up, of course, because he's defending it and winning, but just that his pace in his defenses has been not necessarily as fan friendly as a fight like this one, because this was the most fan friendly fight that I can think of. And I think a lot of the guys in the top 10, not even just the top 5, but the top 10, even going on past that, perhaps, are fighting with this level of intensity. I think that once Pantoja is no longer champion, or when somebody really forces him to get into that type of a fight, then we're going to start seeing a lot more of that with this division. And it has the potential to be the absolute most entertaining, especially now when we're seeing guys like Temerov coming in who have knockout power as well. You add knockout power to flyweight, and the fucking doors just get blown wide open.
Yeah, and I think also what I loved about this fight is, like, when I watched this and I said this is the number one contender. Like, this is right here the number one flyweight right now. Like, this is what I'm watching right now. And I think Taira, I honestly think he got into the fight, and I think he spent too many times against opponents that would stand and wait, to strike with each other. Royval just was not letting up. He was popping him with the jab. He was uppercutting, overhand. Like, Tatsuro just did not, like, understand, like, he can't rest. Like, there's no, like, okay, I got to get my bearings, because he's just getting popped in the face. Like, and it was just happening over and over again. So the second round came, he knew I got to wrestle. And he did good that second round. And I was worried. I was worried, not going to lie. But this was so good from Royval. This was a performance of a lifetime. Talk about underdogs. 2 back-to-back weeks. That wasn't last week, or whatever the fuck Moicano fought, and Royval. These 2 performances right here for underdogs in the main event. They got the shit done.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Yeah, plus 250 on this book. That's a great dog right there. Obviously with the win that he got. But so breaking down the fight itself a little bit. So I know that I'm going to be in the minority on this one, on the watch along, and even slightly in the rewatch. I understand people giving the first round to Royval. I thought that Taira might have taken it. I definitely thought that on the watch along, but in the rewatch, even still, I was like, I mean, it was a pretty goddamn close round. I'm not gonna. It's not. It wasn't. It wasn't so egregious that I'd be angry about it one way or another, really. But that being said, that first round aside, Royval ends up taking it on 2 out of the 3 judges. One judge did give Taira the first round, by the way, too. So at least I wasn't in the complete minority, but I was still in the minority nonetheless. But regardless of the first round, there was no question about the second round when Taira locked in his own body triangle. And I'm telling you, this guy's body triangle is a fucking thing of beauty. If we were talking about Pat Sabatini having a great body triangle, this guy, I was saying it on the watch along, fucking Royval at times was doing fucking somersaults in the triangle. I mean, just doing complete full on 360 rolls in the triangle, and Taira would just not let it break. I mean, I was like, man, you have such amazing controls. He uses his legs in general very, very well. So shout out to Taira. I mean, you had talked about the acumen of Japanese wrestling increasing over time. And I mean, this fight certainly proved that Taira is elite with his wrestling. Absolutely. A lesser fighter will have a lot of problems with Taira, as Royval himself said, in his post fight. He will be champion one day. Very graceful in his post fight, saying he wants to help him out, and that he thinks that he has all the potential in the world, all that kind of stuff. So shout out to Royval for being a good guy on that one. But so that was round 1 and 2. Round 3, though, what a motherfucking banger round 3 was. Good Lord, Royval, heavy shots. Almost had Taira finished at one point. I mean, it was looking like he was really, really dunzo. Commentary was all over it. Now, I mean, it might have just been optics, because he did recover very well. Dom even made that point as well, that his recovery is amazing, and fighting at flyweight, you certainly need that with the pace that these guys keep. But, just the heaviness of Royval's shots was certainly on display. He's got power of his own. And the knee that he landed as well. I mean, I thought that was going to be the one that was going to do it, because it was such a fucking flush knee. He was going in for a takedown, and the knee landed completely. And you saw him drop to his knees, almost like losing for a second, that sort of sunk, not quite there kind of drop to his knees. So I was like, oh, that might've been it, but it was not. And then, after all that back and forth, how about the fact that in the 5th, Royval nearly got a sub of his own? Insane.
That was actually my point to make also. Great that you said it, because we maybe underestimate how good Royval is on the ground. And it's because he's that good at striking. It's because we look at him and we're like, look at his striking. Obviously, he's a striker. This dude has 9 subs of his own. He's only been subbed once. You know who that was to? Pantoja. Like,
there you go.
So Brandon Royval, and to think like he was trying to rip dude's head off at the end of the fight. And I want to argue. So wait, who do you think won the 5th round by your estimate?
Oh, Royval won the.
Okay.
The 5th round, yeah, definitely.
Good. Yeah, that 5th round. Okay, but yeah. So anyway, I thought this was very clear. Back and forth. 1 for Royval, 2 for Tatsuro, 3 for Royval, 4 for Tatsuro. So going to the 5th round, I thought like this was it. And when Tatsuro didn't win, I want to say, I don't know if you saw the passion. He was crying after it,
Yeah.
And hey, shout out to my boy. He's a young guy.
Oh yeah,
he gonna be back. And I do, like you said, and to make your point with Royval, he's a fucking animal, and he's cool that he was trying to link up with Tatsuro, that they could learn together. Even you don't speak Japanese, brother. How are y'all going? Like, what do you anyway? Like, how are y'all going to
wonder about that? Yeah, when it comes to fighters from anywhere that don't speak English, like how the training all works out, because apparently the two of them had trained at some point in Colorado together at some, like in the past. So
yeah, so
they already were somewhat familiar with each other. All those things being equal, I mean, I thought that look, we talk about good losses for people, right? I mean, this is his only loss, Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah.
To do what he did to get to here, there is no shame. Obviously, he was very broken up about it, and that is understandable. But he really should just use this as a learning experience. There are certain times in certain fighters' careers where losses make the most sense. And it sucks to say that because, we all want to see the next Khabib. We all want to see
Yeah.
the undefeated guy who can just do it forever. And that is, something that we is like would be great. It would be great in a perfect world to have, that guy who really is just that thing. But if you're going to take a loss, there are certain times when it's better than others. And I think that this was the exact right time for Taira to take a loss because he took a loss at the highest level of the sport. So, you're only going to be fighting like guys of that caliber for the most part, unless, you take a heavy backslide. And I think he's like 24 years old or something like that. I mean, like you said, he's a young guy. For you to only now be taking a loss, just use it as a learning experience and just become what you are destined to be, because I do think that he is destined for greatness.
I think what's very key in these moments is to
Mhm.
have a very level-headed group around you. To
Yeah.
understand, Tatsuro, you came in at 16-0. You got to the fifth round, and it was questionable with the number one contender of the weight class you're in at the age of 20 something.
Right.
You can compete with the champ. This is obvious. This is a dude that just competed with the champ, went 5 rounds with him, and you went 5 rounds with him. So look at it as, again, learning experience, but don't think that this loss is going to determine anything.
Right. Yeah,
You should
absolutely.
learn from it, yes, but don't think that losing to the number one contender in the last 5 minutes when you really just didn't have it. And even not even just saying that, because you did have a good fifth round. It was probably that last like minute that Royval stole where he slipped up, got a takedown. Like it was really close. So shout out to Tatsuro. He's gonna be back. He's really good. He's really fucking good. And this proved everything, proved everyone right that was saying everything about him.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. No, most definitely. And one more shout out goes out to Toby, who is one of the OGs of the Yamiverse and a member of the Discord as well. In that fifth round, when Royval reversed on the ground, that was the moment that really kind of sold the fight for in Royval's favor.
yeah,
And it was like the fact that you got to that sequence, like, that you made it, you won 2 rounds, like you just said, you won 2 of those rounds, like with the highest of the high in the sport. It's like, had it not been for those small motions, we talk about the small moments in this sport, it was, just a minor slip up that was the difference maker there. So you really nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, I agree with everything that you were saying there.
yeah.
uh,
This is the flyweights, man. This is what they can be, and it sucks that I have to like explain that and just show you literally the number one fucking contender and be like, oh, here you go. This is what flyweights are supposed to look like. But like, this is average, not average, but like this is the type of excitement that flyweights do bring generally. Even the ones you don't even know, you could not even know them, and you could just tune in, and they will put on a firefight. They'll throw in subs, they'll grapple, they'll strike with each other. They might throw each other out the ring. Like I don't even know. Like they just do stuff. It's like a circus sometimes.
Absolutely. And if you are looking for something like that, we'll talk about that in just a second here with the Contender series, where you can see that exact thing if they're fighting flyweight. But before we get to that, overall assessments of the card. I think you talked me into liking this card a little bit more than I initially thought. So this conversation swung me around to maybe thinking it was a little bit better than I had initially given it credit for.
I think I think maybe it was the opposite for me. I came in and I thought I maybe had a better time throughout the card. But the main event, I think, again, we just have main events that save the day, I think. I think personally the main event sold it. Because if we would have came down to the Iron Turtle and then we would have had like, some boring 5-round decision with these flyweights wouldn't really happen. But some boring fight after the Iron Turtle, it probably wouldn't have been, we probably wouldn't have been riding out on a high. So
Sure. Yeah, it definitely was a great fight to cap it off. And, even if not every fight was a fireworks display, some good performances nonetheless. So
yeah.
overall, nice. I'm always happy when fights are happening. All right. So that all being said, let's move on to the Contender series. We are in week 9. As I said at the start of the stream, we are coming to the end of the Contender series here. We got one more week to go. But before we get there, I'm going to start out with week 9 here. And to begin, we had Sean Gauchi versus Anthony Drillich. Gauchi, a dude who beat Steve Urseg in 2017. That's sort of his claim to fame. What'd you think of the fight?
I watched this fight, and I'm so happy at the outcome with the contract part of this because I watched these flyweights, and this was at the top of my attention. So like before they bored me out of the fight, because like I didn't think these are flyweights that just wouldn't be able to compete where they're trying to get a contract to. Like these, I know you just said he beat Steve Ursay, but like I didn't think these dudes made any impression on me, and I'm thankful Dana said the same thing because he tricked me. He started out, he was like, "All right, you said it to me at the beginning of it," and I thought he was going to sign this dude immediately, and I'm glad he said it's just not the night for it because they didn't show it for me.
Yeah, and to be clear, this was not the flyweight fight that I was talking about when I said that you can see that on the Contender
Oh
series.
yes, okay, gotcha.
But I'm just talking in a general sense, not this
Yeah,
fight specifically. But no, I agree. This was not a super high level fight on either side of the equation, but because of that level that they both were at, it was still competitive. For some reason, when I was doing the watch along, the chat was really hyping Gauchi coming into the fight, and I definitely didn't see what they were getting on about with that. At least in the first round, good takedown defense from Drillich. I mean that it just in the first, at least, slow round overall in the first. I would say that Drillich took that first round. Um, I mean, Drillich does that was the other big note that I had about Drillich specifically. A lot of my notes were more on Drillich's side than they were on Gauchi's side, and that kind of speaks to this not really being that great of a fight. I wanted to make note that Drillich does the thing which I really hope that someone in his camp dissuades him from doing in the future, where he takes the one hand and puts it on the side of the head when he's landing punches with the other hand. That is a very, very dangerous thing to do, because you are leaving an entire side of both sides of your face basically wide open. And if the person that you're doing it to basically does an explosive motion, gets out of that, your hands are already like away. Both of your hands are so far away from being any sort of guard that, I mean, that's a counter puncher's dream right there. So that was just
yeah,
something I wanted to make a note of. Yeah, I mean, Gauchi gets a unanimous decision win. I would say it's deserved. I think he took those second two rounds, but not a super impressive fight. And I agree with you that it was good that he didn't end up getting a contract off of that, because as we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier in the stream, they've been a little bit liberal with the contracts they've been giving out. There have been a couple of times that we've talked about it where we were like, I don't know if that really would have been my decision if I was in control to give that guy a contract. I'm glad that this was one that was that case. Gauchi, he has all the potential to come back and put on a better performance, but on the Contender series, you need to be dynamic, explosive, and show everything that you have. And that level, it's like you said, is not going to fly with the flyweights.
100%.
So that's that. Moving on to a much more impressive performance. This is Vanilto, I believe is how you say it, Vanilto Antunes versus Islam Dulatov. This Dulatov guy, man, wow. Talk about explosive.
I remember when they were asking, they were in the bet slip Discord chat and they were talking about good bets, and I saw the dude's name Islam, and I said, all right, he's winning it. You can't go wrong. I mean, there's no way he's losing. And was I correct? And when I watched this fight back, when I actually got to watch this, what was that, Saturday or Sunday? This was a crazy elbow. The angle, the body, like just. Yeah, he killed bro. And hey, shout out Germany actually. So we don't get many Germans and they don't get a lot of love, rightfully so, but we respect you guys. Shout out you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to see Germany absolutely in the camp of the emerging market that I often talk about. But yeah, I mean, obviously Dulatov is Germany by way of elsewhere, but still training and living in Germany. So, that's you can count that as a win. He's flying the German flag when he walks into the cage. That's, that all adds up. So yeah, I mean, really, what I have as the note here is Antunes lands one leg kick, and then it is 100% Dulatov after that. I mean, this dude took control of this fight super, super quickly, and the striking was crisp. The striking was fast. He wrestled a little bit when he didn't really need to, but okay, just to, nice to see that you have the
Throw it
ability
in
to.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Really, you get the entire smorgasbord with this guy. And yeah, that step in elbow to achieve the knockout was, I mean, it doesn't get much more pretty than that, dude. Like, good Lord. I saw when he landed the elbow, I was like, damn, that looks nice. And then when you saw the body drop, I was like, oh, damn, that was the one. So, I mean, that's really all that there is to say about the fight. Dulatov looked fantastic. Can't wait to see him in the big show. This is an example of a guy we sometimes talk about where, how are they actually going to fare in the big show? We got to see, him against a higher level competition, of course. Got to see what he actually is like on the ground because it never went there. But I think that with the level of intensity that he brings to the fight from the jump, he has the potential to do what I often say is the right thing to do, which is be first. Come out with the level of intensity that you want to keep. And if you can keep that pace, I mean, they're fighting at welterweight. It's right at the cusp of where the gas tank starts to be a little bit more of a major factor for these fighters, fighting a little bit heavier. But if you have the ability to keep that up, then, be first and be often the first to the punch. I mean, and he did that entirely here.
Yeah, 100%.
So just keep doing what you're doing, bro. And the other minor little weird note that I have is that apparently Dulatov is a Versace model and also a social media influencer. So
of course he is. Aren't we all?
Yeah, well, you're right, exactly. Some more successful than others, from what I understand. Apparently, this guy does pretty well with it. So doesn't even really need to fight. From what they were saying on the commentary, apparently he does pretty well financially. So he's a guy who's out here fighting for the love of fighting, and you got to respect that.
Facts.
All right, moving on to this was Lucas Camacho versus Mario Pinto. Pinto repping Portugal, but grew up and trains in the UK. But still, another one like we were saying about Germany. It might be by way of. But regardless, well, a little bit different because he's repping Portugal, but trains and does everything in the UK. But Dulatov is repping Germany, but born elsewhere. So a little bit of a flip flop, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I want to say, starting off, that there is so-called a 1-inch height difference between these two. And I don't believe it because Mario Pinto was huge. This dude is massive.
Yeah.
And his striking, listen, he got the knockout. So that's really all I need to see. I mean, I don't really need to see too much more at these heavyweights because I just saw a heavyweight matchup, on not a pay-per-view, but on a UFC fight card, and they didn't even make it past the second fucking halfway of the second round. So I don't need you to do much. Just go out here and get a knockout in the first round. There you go.
Yeah, and so that's really the overall note of it is that there's not much to say here because not much happened in this fight. The knockout was just a swiping hook from Pinto that ended up doing it, and that was about it. This does not really give much of an indication of anything, except for that, like you're saying. I mean, it was pretty much just your standard heavyweight fight. I don't necessarily have a great feeling about Pinto based off of it because we don't know. So, go out there and have to prove a little bit more in order to give me a better impression one way or the other. But he did get the knockout, so we'll see what happens.
I actually want to I'm not going to take back anything, but I want to add to it and say that I remember now that additionally to how tall he is and how big of a fighter this dude is, his kicks are very impressive. He's got good mobility. He's got really good, fast, low kicks. But he didn't throw any body kicks, but I mean, he might have went high with one or something. I remember being like astounded, like, holy shit, this dude just threw like a fucking spin kicker. Like he did something out of the ordinary that I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy to see not Robelis to Spain do, So
all right, fair. Yeah, I maybe I just didn't pick up on it because there wasn't much fight to be had here. 3 minutes and change basically. But we'll see what he can do with those in the real show. I mean, that like to be a well-rounded heavyweight is like finding a fucking 4-leaf clover at this point. So, If he has anything beyond heavy hands, he'll do probably better than I'd say about 75% of the heavyweights right now. Like I'm still just waiting for there to be a heavyweight to buck this trend of big for nothing. Well, I mean, not big for nothing, but big for just your power. Like, I mean, this is what ends up, I mean, I don't want to go on a tirade here and I'm not going to, but, you want to know why John Jones is, like would be just dominant forever at heavyweight aside from being John Jones is because there's nothing to challenge the well-roundedness of a John Jones. So, until that there's somebody who can put all of the pieces together at heavyweight, you're pretty much going to get guys who are either heavy hands or wrestle heavy, not both, which is what you need. So,
100%.
Whatever. We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to a more competitive fight and one that I actually enjoyed a lot. I'd say that this was the best fight of this week of the Contender Series. This is Cody Steele versus Chasen Blair. Cody Steele, you might remember, is the guy whose opponent pulled out earlier in the season. Glad to see him rebooked against a guy who gave him a good fight.
Yeah, that's actually the point I was going to make is like, if, thankfully the dude pulled out the other week because this dude really wants to fight Cody Steele. He wanted to beat him. And it sucks that Cody Steele actually is kind of the truth. He did get, and after the first round, I had the same questions, the same thing that happened with Grant Dawson I had with Cody Steele. I said, like, oh, brother, like, nah, like, we're just going to see the same thing that I just saw, and it's not going to be a finishing sequence ever coming. But I'm glad that he finally got to it. I will admit, I was dealing with stream shit. I was reading the comments and doing the whole thing. So it slipped me to pay too much attention to it. But when he was getting the finish, I was like, okay, living up to what, people were putting on him. What he didn't put that on himself. He didn't come in and say like, oh, I'm going to finish somebody. But the fact that he scared his opponent off, it's like, okay, now he actually has to be some killer. He had to live up to the story that was put on him.
Yeah, it's a good point. And actually, I mean, for all of the external factors that you were dealing with, you caught a good amount of what my notes were. I liked how both of these guys were fighting. I really enjoyed this fight overall. I thought that Steele was just a little bit sloppy in the first round. I thought that his shots weren't super, super crisp, and he left himself open a couple of times, but he tightened up very well thereafter. I think that he made some really, really sound adjustments in this fight that showed that he's got a decent fight IQ overall. He's a very accredited BJJ guy. Apparently, you saw in the intro package, he's got many shiny medals around his neck for jiu-jitsu. Didn't have to use a ton of it in this fight, but it's good to know that he does have that. Let his hands do the talking, and came out with a really nice sequence that did end the fight there. Because when he came back after making those adjustments, and even a little bit in the first round too, he was all pressure. I mean, this guy will walk forward, man. I mean, like, he's not going to give you an inch. And that was, I think, a big detriment to Blair was that Steele was cutting him off every time that he wanted to move. I mean, like, he wasn't letting him have the real estate that he wanted to have. Blair is nice off the back foot, luckily for him. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was completely negating his offense, but just nice pressure from Steele to keep the fight where he wanted it to be. And then, as I had mentioned earlier in on the Apex card that we just reviewed, liver shot knockout for Steele. I love it. I love it. It is, I'm so glad that we are seeing body shots used to their full potential, because they are so devastating when they land correctly. And you're seeing it more and more now. Guys are realizing, hey, I don't need to headhunt all the time. There is a whole torso's worth of opening there to land shots on as well. And when you get it in that right spot, it is like flipping the switch, that liver shot. And, it's also, I mean, not to be a pussy about it, but it's kind of nice because it's like it shuts the body down, but it doesn't really like leave like devastating effects. Like, you're pretty well back to being okay within a minute or two after you get that shot, but it's effective enough in the moment that it shuts you down completely. So, it's kind of from a sportsmanship aspect of it. It's nice to not see these guys having to take devastating damage in their losses if they're going to have them anyway.
Yeah.
So there you go. Nice win for Steele. And I'd say that he's one as well that I would think probably has a decent shot of looking pretty good in the big show, but it depends on who they match him up with, and we will see.
100%.
All right, and finally we have Islam Masraf versus Artem Vahitov. Vahitov, of course, is the seven-time Glory kickboxing champion, and of course, the last man to beat Pereira in kickboxing. Poatan in the Apex to watch the fight. What'd you think of Mr. Vahitov?
Oh, that's this guy.
That's this guy.
Um, um, didn't really do it for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's kind of what everybody was saying. I mean, first going into the fight, everyone was like, "Oh, this guy can get submitted, no problem." First, even before that, take one step back, he was 2-1 coming into this fight. So the fact that he's even getting a shot on the Contender Series is a little bit wild anyway. Of course, he's getting, the reasons I just laid out are why that all came to be, of course. But that being said, 2-1, still, you're 50% loss ratio there is, that's a little bit sus coming in. And then everybody was like, this guy, there's no way he's got any ground game. Of course, it didn't have to end up going there. He showed a little bit of his wrestling, but that looked kind of sloppy too. Power in the hands is obviously there, but this was not exactly an overwhelming victory that said, wow, that made you say this guy is next up,
he caught him with a head kick, right?
No, I think it was strikes. If I believe,
okay, no,
he
you're
might.
right.
I mean, he might have gotten one in there at some point, but it wasn't the finishing sequence.
Either way, now that you brought up this bro, why am I starting to think that being a Glory kickboxing champion means that you're gonna come in here and be a fat, overweight fucking guy who doesn't check kicks? Like I'm serious, because if this is a multiple time kickboxing champion and like I don't watch you, like, okay, the fact is that Cyril Gahn can show up off the couch tomorrow and he could show me what a great kickboxer looks like. But the fucking Glory kickboxing champion, 7 times, 17 medals around his neck, he comes in here on his first MMA fight. Like, I get it, or not first MMA fight, but first Contender Series fight.
Right.
And I'm not seeing no Glory fucking champion. I did the same thing with Junior, I'm not going to lie. When he came in this first fight that I saw him, and they said Glory kickboxing champion, and he didn't check a single fucking kick. I'm like, all right, what is going on here? Like, there's something up, right? So this right here, being 3-1, you get a ham-fisted opponent because obviously you're not that great. They know it. They just need the publicity to get you in the league. So they give you another 3-1 opponent, or 3-0 opponent at the time. Is like, name another opponent that's coming to the Contender Series without 5 wins at least. Like, I know it's kind of crazy. Like, 5 sounds even littler but like 3 is ridiculous. Coming in at 2-1 on the Contender Series, Dana, you tell people they're too green all the time, but you're gonna take this dude first fucking glance, like off of a nothing performance. Like,
I mean, to that point, Pereira, apparently, based on what Dana said, it was Pereira who actually convinced Dana to give the guy a shot, to give him the contract. So that's an interesting little element of it as well. It's what I said at one point on one of the watch-alongs. I guess it was probably the 307. Was that Pereira? At one point I had said that he is a hater. He's like a guy who never lets go of previous opponents who have beaten him. What I think is actually a little bit more accurate in a weird way. He's a guy who wants to fight you until you get better. is kind of what I get from Pereira, because it's like, I don't know if like it was a hater thing to like say, hey, give this guy a shot and then maybe I'll be able to beat him again to avenge the loss. Obviously, we know about Pereira and Israel Adesanya. That's a whole saga in and of itself. But the way that he talks to to Izzy specifically as well, and to, a couple of these other guys who he has these like long-standing feuds with, is it's like, I'll train with you. Like I want to be your friend, and then I want to beat you so that that you improve yourself through me. So yeah. I don't know what that all means. I just say that just to say that apparently it was Pereira who ended up consulting with Dana to give this guy a shot, because as we're alluding to here and getting at, this was not the world-ending performance that you generally want to have on the Contender Series. The one thing I will say as well was that his opponent, Islam Masraf, he swarmed early, and ended up getting clinched because of it. But gets a takedown anyway. So I mean, that sort of was like a back and forth little thing there. But Vahytov almost got taken down for a second time, but was able to weather that. So it's not like he's like incapable completely of hanging in the wrestling department, like 100%. I just think that a better guy is going to have a field day with it. So, we got to see what he ends up actually getting paired up with. But it was hilarious to me because Bisping, almost like fourth wall breaking, tipping the hand a little bit, basically said on commentary, he's like, yeah, I'd like to see him get a contract, come in, fight a couple of strikers, and then rematch Pereira. It's like, damn, Bisping, you just fucking gave away the whole script, bro.
Yeah, that shit is crazy. And I also want to make my last point is that unfortunately my name gambling option, it was not the right choice because this is actually the Islam that I would have said to put money on. The one with the E. Yeah. Yep. So he would have got beat up, I guess, by a bum. So I would have been upset on that one. And that would have been on me. I would have lost a bunch of people money on that one. But we went some to lose some.
Yeah, there you go. So all in all, 5 fights, 4 contracts awarded. Dulatov, Pinto, Steele, and Vahytov all get contracts. I think that we've kind of already got at it, but you're pretty comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with. Okay, sure. I mean, I guess if I have to give the last guy a fucking contract because he's Alex fucking ex-rival or something. Yeah, it's all right. I want to make a point, actually, because I didn't get to. Sure. There was 5 fights on this. One of them, which is already not 6. Isn't there normally 6? Or is it?
No, it's always 5.
I feel like this felt a lot shorter for some reason. Maybe because it was a lot of finishes. But either way.
Finishes. Yeah, for sure.
So originally it was going to be a 4-fight card because Cody Steele had to come into this card. So what was how exactly was this going to work out? Did they move somebody back or somebody
that's what I think happened
next season? Or?
Yeah, I think it was one of those. I think that they basically just rearranged a little bit of the later part of the season to get Cody Steele back in there. Is what my instinctually I would say anyway.
Right,
I'm not 100%, but yeah, I mean they it's always 5 fights, and somebody just probably got bumped, honestly.
Good deal. Well, yeah, it was all right. It was fine.
So yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. Gauchi definitely did not deserve. Vahytov probably didn't deserve either, but Pereira tipped the scales for him. So, that's going to be what it's going to be. And the only other note that I have is that I would like to see Chasen Blair get another chance because I think that Chasen Blair definitely he's a guy that needs to come back and get another shot at the big show. I really enjoyed the way he fought.
100%.
So there you have it, everybody. A whole lot of fights gone over today, but that is the Contender Series for Week 9 and UFC Fight Night, Royval versus Taira. We've got coming up next week, it is Fluffy Hernandez versus Michelle Pajeda. That's I'm looking forward to that one. We will be doing our individual watch-alongs, internet permitting, of course. So you can find me doing a watch-along right here, youtube.com/@YamaShow. I am Yama Show on Twitch, Kick, and Trovo as well. Last week's fights will come back next Monday to talk about all of those fights and the final week of the Contender Series. And we always start at 9 o'clock. If we don't start at 9 o'clock, we will start later than 9. And I will keep you posted on that on Instagram and on Twitter. And Chase Parton, I know that you can tell them where they can find you for your watch along.
They can find me on YouTube every Saturday. The UFC has an event, watching the fights on youtube.com, of course, /@CP Smalls.
There you go. Make sure you follow my boy, subscribe to the channel. Catch him on Twitter as well. You don't be wanting to shout out his Twitter as much.
All right. Twitter. I got you at Creative Parton, PARTIN. Find me there for some fun times that I maybe occasionally sometimes have.
Gotta pry it out of him, but follow my boy on Twitter as well. We will be back next Monday to go over all of the upcoming fights. Thank you very much for hanging out with us, and until next week, everybody, take good care of yourself, and as always, fight on.
Game.